So our priorities tonight are two main things. Number one, we need to choose a district chair. And number two is appointing, hopefully, the 4 town meeting members that we have vacant seats for in District 1. District 1 caucus has a hard stop at 5:45 this evening so that we can get ready for the District 2 caucus. And then you'll join back in for the 7:30 information session. So a few more things. If you are not currently an elected town meeting member for District 1, please call in as a member of the public or join us later for your district's caucus if you are a town meeting member in a different district. And then finally, I would say that for folks calling in, you can mute and unmute yourselves by dialing *6. And you can raise your hand or lower your hand by dialing *9. If you are a town meeting member and you've joined through Zoom, depending on which version of Zoom you have, there are 2 different places where you'll see the raise hand function. It will either be under participants at the bottom of your screen or under reactions at the bottom of your screen. So that's how you'll raise your hand, and Chris will look for your hand. Chris, I'll help you look for hands raised.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. With that, I will pass it over to Chris.
I have a question,
Sorry,
which is, Hillary, in the event that the several people I've been in touch with who are very interested in being caucused in, if they cannot communicate this evening, because this is pretty advanced stuff for many people, and just plain new, what are the other opportunities to be caucused in? Is there another caucus date?
Tonight is, because everything is happening online, and there's a lot of coordination and logistics, we are only holding this one caucus. But Chris, I'd say that if you know of somebody that you spoke to that is interested, or any of the members knows of somebody that's interested, similar to what we've done in the past, they can nominate that person even if they're not here.
Oh,
And
is
then
that right?
It's up to the district members to decide whether or not to appoint them or not.
Oh, okay. So let me get it straight. Let me repeat it back to you. I could name these names and people could vote them in.
Yes.
I could nominate them from the chair, or others could nominate in second, and we could. And then the first thing I would do is ask if it's okay with the district 1 members to do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
And if you pause for just 1 second, Patrick, who is in the background dealing with all of the technical stuff and letting people into the room, just had a couple of quick things. So just bear with me.
We figured out one of them, and it was Orion Barber, and that's fine. There's somebody named Rick Morton. I'm going to let him in, and somebody's going to have to ask him to identify who they are.
Rick Morton is a member of the public who should be calling in. So if you let him in, we'll give him that information and we'll ask him
Great.
to leave.
Yes, he's one of those 3, this is wonderful. Good. Success.
Yes. So as soon as Patrick lets him in, I'll give him the information. We'll ask him to leave, and then I will pass it over to you, Chris. Okay.
Okay. And then, so our agenda this evening is to, after a welcome, is to elect this year's caucus chair,
the district chair,
to entertain nominations of new members to seek approval by the district caucus on appointing people, even if we can't see them or hear from them.
Correct. So there are 4 open seats for a 1-year term.
For a 1-year term.
Yes.
I have 3 such candidates who've been in touch with me.
Right. So let me just talk with Rick for a second, and then I will pass it to you, Chris. Okay.
I'll wait for your high sign.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rick, as a member of the public who's interested in being appointed for a 1-year term, I'm actually going to ask you to sign out of the meeting. And the purpose of that is the integrity of the vote in case a vote needs to happen. Only elected members can vote on the appointment of new members. So if you sign out and dial back in, and I can give you that phone number, then you can introduce yourself by phone, but you won't have the ability to vote. Go ahead, Rick, if it's okay with you, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't have a phone with me. I just have the computer. So I can log out. What should I do then?
If you don't have a phone with you, perhaps.
If he can indicate his intention to be elected.
Yeah,
great. We'll
if-
put him on-
If you want to indicate now your desire to be appointed for a 1-year term, then you'll log out and you can watch the meeting through BCTV, and then I'll be in touch to make sure we have the right contact information
Okay.
for you.
So here's
Okay.
what I would like to do is to hear from Rick, and then he can sign off. But
Right.
So Rick, this is your big chance to get the nomination at this convention. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested? And that's all I'm gonna really ask of you. Just the basics like that. How long you've lived here, and none of there's no rule about what you can and can't say.
I'll be brief. I've lived in Vermont and Brattleboro since 92. I could have lived in New Hampshire, but we decided we'd rather pay property tax, income tax, and sales tax rather than just property tax. So we moved here, tongue in cheek. We've loved it here. I'm a chaplain at Vernon Advent Christian Homes. That's a part-time job. I retired from Brattleboro Savings and Loan. I was a security officer and compliance officer there for 24 years. Well, I wound up in those positions by the end of 24 years. And so I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God, appointed chaplain, and I'm also chair of the Windham County Republican Committee and the Brattleboro Town Committee. So those are the positions I've held. I've been interested in the political arena for some time, mostly on the periphery. So I thought, well, hey, why not get a little bit more involved?
Great. Thank you. And so you're stepping up, hoping to be nominated and voted in as a caucus member for District 1.
Yes, but Chris, not as chair.
Ha 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 ha. Rats. Okay. Thank you. And so you'll log off now, and I'll get back to the usual agenda. Are you there? You are not there.
I believe he's
If you're
got
not
it.
there, so if you're not there, say so, right? Got it? Is that how that goes? Okay, everyone. I'm grateful for that person's interest. And so let me just open the meeting to say welcome. I'm very glad to be in the same chat room with you folks. This is not easy. I understand that very clearly. And a person of my advanced age, it's not easy to do new things. I'll be 65 next week. So thank you all for coming, for being willing to really stick up for your town in these unusual circumstances. So let me get right to it. The first item on the agenda, unless somebody has another item that they would like to put on the agenda, we only have 20 minutes left, but is there any additional agenda item that anybody wishes to request? Hearing none. Let me open the floor for nominations for District 1 Chair. Good heavens. Hillary, are you there?
I
Is
am.
everybody-
So
I can't hear the flood of names being nominated.
Chris, we have 2 hands up. Lauren Crisp is the first hand up. Would you like him to be recognized?
Please. Lauren?
Yes. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Well, I'm
Right.
getting a little bit of a feel for what it's like to be town meeting moderator. I don't
Good for
envy
you. Good for you. I have the privilege this evening of nominating you as the district chair.
Okay, are there any other nominations?
So Chris, we have Richard Race with a hand up.
Yes, sir. Would you please recognize him? I would like to recognize Mr. Race.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. Can someone just explain how this is supposed to work? Are we just raising our hand and people are unmuting us? Is that how? Because there's no chat, there's no way to unmute ourselves. Like, I just some rules here would be helpful.
Absolutely. So Chris, may I speak to that?
Please.
Okay. So what's happening is I'm letting Chris know if there are hands up. So yes, you'll raise your hand. I'll let Chris know in the order that people's hands are up, and he will let us know if he wishes to recognize that person. And then in the background here, we will send you an invite to unmute yourselves.
Okay. I'm still talking, so I still have it. So can I just second that motion to nominate Chris as the chairman?
All right. Who else?
So John Kennedy has a hand up.
Okay.
Do you-
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes, I'd like to nominate you as a second also.
thanks a lot. And let me see, there's another hand up. I see OMB 2ND.
Orion Barber.
Oh, Orion, are you stepping back into the race?
There, can you hear me?
Yes, eager to hear from
I
you.
can't see me, but okay. So you're nominated, right?
Unless you want to run.
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to move that nominations be closed.
There is a motion that the
And
nominations be
that,
closed. Oh,
clerk-
go ahead. Sorry.
And that the clerk cast one vote for the slate.
There is a motion that nominations be closed, but there are two hands up, Mr. Henry Pereira and George Carville. Which was first, Hillary?
Henry Pereira is first.
Mr. Pereira, you're recognized. Maybe he was voting early.
No, no, I was just wondering because I hear in your voice a hesitation to be chair. I know you've been chair in the past. I would second your nomination, but I want to hear, do you really want to be chair, or do you feel like I really don't want to do this? Because if you don't want to do this, that's a different matter.
Yeah, well, I was just being funny. I am
Oh,
willing
I
to
see.
step up.
Okay.
It's, you know, the money isn't any good, but the press isn't bad because I'm never mentioned. So
Got it.
that's the story. That's the story. And you know,
Well,
there's some work
Chris-
on the side, but I'm busy. But it's worth it for the town of Brattleboro, my hometown. I was born here, raised here, returned here with my family, living here. Don't ever want to leave. So
No, I
So-
appreciate that. I appreciate your candor, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. I second the nomination.
thank you. Well, maybe the group will vote me a raise. It's double my salary, which is now at 0. And I'd like to now recognize George Carville. George?
Yeah, unmute. I second Orion's motion, though before I vote, I'd like to hear the names of that list of, wait a minute.
Candidates?
There we
It's
go.
very short.
Yes, well, whatever, you said Orion said vote for the slate. I don't know who all's on the slate yet.
At the moment, I'm the only person on the slate to be elected District 1 caucus chair.
Ah, okay,
Would you like to step up?
no,
Okay, that's pretty clear. It looks like we should, is everyone in favor of closing out the nominations? How do we vote?
So we can do it one of two ways. We can either have Patrick do a poll saying, is anybody opposed? Yes or no? Or we can just say, we're going to move forward unless there's a hand up with somebody who's opposed. So that's up to you, Chris, how you'd like to move forward with that.
I'd like to use the simpler version that doesn't take so much time because we have 15 minutes left and the real substance of this meeting is coming up. I've just been clowning around.
Yep. So I think it's a matter of you asking, based on nominations, I will be elected chair unless there's any opposition. And if so, please raise your hand.
Everybody hear that? Unless somebody objects, it looks like I'm in the zot for another year. Are there any objections?
I'm not seeing any hands up, Chris.
It looks like I'm your guy for the next year. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. I'll put it on my resume. Next time I put one together. So we have 3 people who have expressed interest, and all 3 to me. And I'll bring them to you in order of that expressed interest. The first was Ms. Mary Emery. I think she was born in Brattleboro and returned here as, I believe, a teacher. No, she's a nurse and her husband is a teacher, Academy School. And she hoped to be written in, but was she needed 10 votes, but her campaign got off the ground just a little bit too late. I will admit that I voted for her. I wrote her in. I don't know how many others did. She seemed very interested. She's a resident of District 1. The second was Mr. Rick Morton, whom we've heard from. And the third is a familiar name to people who've been town meeting reps before. And that is Mr. Dave Miner, who is chair of the Human Services Committee, which puts together the list of organizations with amounts requested and which puts together a recommended amount for each one of those for in one of the articles that we vote on every year. So that's 3 people: Mary Emery, Mr. Rick Morton, and Mr. Dave Miner. Ms. Emery and Mr. Morton and Mr. Miner. Let me see. I'm going to recognize Mr. John Kennedy. Hi, Mr. Kennedy. You have your hand up. Did you have a contribution to make?
Chris, I think Patrick is just working on getting him unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to nominate all 3 of those named people as a slate and move that we accept them.
Chris, if I may, there are 2 people who are on with phones, and I don't know if they're the people that you listed or if they're other people. So I don't know if you want to recognize them by their phone numbers and we can at least hear from them to see if they're different people or if they would like to represent themselves in any way.
Yeah, did you say to hear from them or cheer for them?
Hear from them.
Okay. Mary Emery, I believe, would be dialing in from 802-246-7746. Is that one of the numbers?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Miner, wait a minute. I don't have his number.
Okay, so we do have one of the callers with a hand raised, the phone number ending in 0341. Would you like to recognize that person?
I would like to recognize that person. Thank you.
Sure.
Sir, ma'am, you're on. Hello?
Hello, this is Mary Emery. I'm calling from the hospital.
Oh, Mary, yes, great.
Hi.
Thank you for calling in.
Yes, thank you for the information, and you did a wonderful job introducing me. I have nothing more to say other than that I'm really looking forward to participating more in my local government.
Wonderful. Anything else you'd like to add while you're on?
No.
While you're under the limelight?
No, that's all.
Okay, great. And will you, and let me just remind you that we have at 7:30, the informational meeting, if you can make it. And if you can't, I will email you a link to the town report, which is a touchstone for the entire meeting of the town meeting reps. And I think maybe she's gone.
She's muted again. And then the other person who doesn't have a hand raised, but their phone number is ending in 3002. I don't know if you'd like to recognize them. And just as a reminder, if you're calling in to unmute yourself, press *6. And that's how you'll do that.
Okay, I'd like to recognize that person,
And to
please.
raise your hand is *9.
Could we hear from that caller? Is that possible?
I think they will need to press *6 or *9 if they're interested, and then Patrick will work his magic in the background. They might not be interested in speaking. I don't know. I just know that it's a caller who called, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to try to recognize them.
Well, I'd like to, if that's possible. Well, I do recognize that caller. I just am not able to hear from the caller. And I gather no one else is able to either. Okay.
No.
We have 6 minutes. No, we have basically 5 minutes left. Shall we proceed as we did? Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Carville both have their hands up. And Bethany Ranquist.
I'm not seeing Mr. Kennedy's hand up. I am seeing George Carville as the first hand up.
Okay, I guess Mr. Kennedy lowered his hand. Mr. Carville, your hand is up.
I move nominations be closed.
Okay, now I'm getting a message, Chris. And it was from the 3003 number. He was trying to come in. And I gather that's Mr. Minor. I'm afraid we've got to press on. So George, what were you saying?
I was moving that nominations be closed.
Okay, there's a motion there. I would like to recognize Bethany Ranquist beforehand, because she had her hand raised before you made your motion. Ms. Ranquist?
Yeah, there was already a motion to move forward with voting on them, and I was just going to second that motion. So
Very good.
Whether it's that we're closing or moving forward to vote, I just wanted to second that. But I thought that the original motion was to move forward with the 3 people that you had brought up, in which case I second that.
Okay, to move to, and this is to vote on them as a slate. And unless there's an objection, I would like to make this a vote so that silence gives consent, and you have to object if you have a problem with any one of those people, or if you have a problem with our doing this, voting these people in as a slate. Are there objections to either of those items? Speak now, raise your hand now, or forever hold your peace. And it looks to me like we have legitimately acted as a group to include the 3 nominees as members of the District 1 caucus to the Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting for 1 year, beginning now. And they are certainly eligible and welcome, as any other member is, to attend at 7:30 the informational meeting. And I would point out that this is one of 2. The second meeting is on March 17. You'll have to break away from your celebrations of St. Patrick's Day to attend an information on the water treatment plant reconstruction project. Now, that's a $30 million project that began about 10 years ago. And so this is not going to be unimportant. It will be important. So I would recommend that everybody attend tonight's informational meeting and next week's informational meeting, which will also be at 7:30.
If I may, Chris?
Yes.
So for the new folks who were just appointed for the year, please keep an eye out in your email. You'll be getting some important information from Patrick Moreland and myself. And then Chris, if you can stay on after, just so that I can get a little bit of information from you as the district
Yes.
chair.
Mhm.
And everybody else, once Chris closes this meeting, please make sure to log out because the District 2 caucus is starting soon. And then
Right.
again, log back in for the 7:30 meeting.
Very good. Very good. Is there a motion to close our meeting, or does anybody else have anything they wish to put forth in the next 2 minutes? Bethany Ranquist, you're recognized.
I motion to close.
Is there a second? John Kennedy, I recognize you. Are you moving? Are you seconding the motion?
I second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All in favor of all who, let's see, only if you object, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any raised hands. So let's vote. Are we adjourned? And if, and the answer is yes, unless there's an objection, which I will entertain. It looks to me as though we are closing this meeting with 1 minute to spare. Are we not the best? Yay, District 1. Thank you very much. And we wouldn't be the best without Hillary and her very, very capable assistants. I really appreciate everything you've done tonight. And we are now done. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Hillary.
So Chris, I have 2 different phone numbers for you. Which should I be putting down as the official phone number for you as the district chair?
Well, I guess it should be 579-6407. It's best that way. The home phone is the other one, and I'm just all electronic these days.
Okay. And the email address that I have for you is the best one.
What is that?
The cchapman1004 at Comcast.
You know something, I'm going to recommend that you use Chris at tcvermont.com.
And Vermont is spelled out.
Yeah, T is in Tom, C is in cat, Vermont spelled out.com.
Okay. And then I will shoot you an email either later this evening or tomorrow. You and I are going to need to schedule a time to meet outside for you to just sign some documents.
You'd like to do that tomorrow? The weather's going to be excellent. So
I'll shoot you an email tomorrow and we can arrange a time, whether it's tomorrow or the next day.
That's fine.
And then I am going to need contact information for Dave Minor because I don't have any information. You said that you would email that to me. And we can't get him the information that he needs without at least a phone number or email address.
Wait a minute. I may have that right now. Just a moment. I'm going to.
Okay, if you can, Chris, if you can just email it to me, that would be helpful. That way we're not airing his information on VCTV.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. I will do that momentarily.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This worked out very well, Hillary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're the best.
We have some District 2 folks starting to log on, so we should probably close.
Sayonara.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Are we ready to get started? Okay, wonderful. So welcome everybody to the District 2 caucus for 2021 representative town meeting. For those of you who were on before, you heard Margaret and I chit-chatting a little bit. I'm going to just do a couple of housekeeping things and then I will pass it over to Margaret, who was chair as of last year. So there are a couple people that we just need to do some checking in with because only elected District 2 town meeting members or ex officio members within that district can be in the meeting through Zoom. Otherwise you have to dial in, and that's to keep the integrity of the vote if we do have any votes. So I just need to check in with a couple people. There's somebody named Jeannie on here. You'll see an invite to unmute yourself. And if you could just identify yourself, we just need to make sure that you are in fact a District 2 town meeting member.
Hi, yes, Jeannie Giaquinto, resident on Washington Street in Brattleboro.
Okay, so I do not believe that you are elected as a town meeting member. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you on here because you're interested in being appointed?
Yes.
Okay, so what I need for you to do is actually log out of the meeting, and I'll give you a phone number. You can call back in, and then you can participate that way. That way we can just avoid questions as to the vote, because as a member of the public, you do not currently have a vote. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so are you ready for the phone number?
No, sorry.
That's okay.
I wasn't expecting to have to do that. Gee. Okay, go ahead. I'm
Okay,
ready.
so if you call 833
Mm-hmm.
548 0282, and then the
Okay.
meeting ID and passcode is the same as the one that you use to dial in to log into this if it asks you for that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other person that we were unsure who you were, although I'm not seeing you on here anymore, is the Brooks Zoom 2. Patrick, do you see that person? Oh, yes, I see them. And your hand is up. So, Patrick, if you can recognize Brooks Zoom 2, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Ricky Rosati, and I have been trying to check my email, but I've been having difficulty connecting to the internet, and I was curious if we could recognize the slow down reaction button as a point of order so that that can be prioritized instead of just a raised hand during the meetings.
I don't know. I don't believe it's possible to change that in the middle of a meeting. That would be a question for Patrick. Ricky was asking if we can allow the slow down and speed up functions, but I don't think that's doable in the middle of a meeting.
I don't know if they're present or not. If they
Right.
are present, you can press them. I don't know that they mean anything, and this is Margaret's meeting
Right.
to chair.
So yeah, it's up to Margaret. If the buttons are there, then you can press them, and it's up to Margaret as to whether or not she would like to recognize those when we get there. Okay, so there were a couple of other housekeeping. We have 2 Diane Cooks present. If I think I know what's going on, but if one of you can, Patrick, if you can recognize one of them, just so we can clean that up and clarify. So Diane,
I'm unmuted. Yeah. Turn your volume down.
I did.
You're on.
so it's okay as long as we know that one of you is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and
I'll
one is
have to talk to
Diane.
Patrick. I'll talk to Patrick again tomorrow. Yeah, he's on and I'm on, and yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
I think I know what.
Okay, and then we had 2, I'm not sure if it was Robin, or I think we had 2 Robin Morgans on. Okay, so bear with us for just one second. We're just still trying to clean this up. Is there anybody else, Patrick, that we need to? Okay. Sorry, everyone, bear with us. So while we're waiting on this last person to be let in, that we have questions on. There are just a couple of housekeeping things. So we already did our District 1 caucus. We have the District 2 now, immediately followed by the District 3, and then the information session. So the items that we need to accomplish during this half hour is to choose a chair, and then there's one open seat for a 1-year term for town meeting member that ideally we will be appointing tonight. There is a hard stop for this meeting at 6:30. If you are not currently an elected town meeting member of District 2, please call in as a member of the public or join us at your designated district caucus time. And that's for purposes of a vote integrity, if there are any votes. And then for phone callers, in order to unmute yourselves or mute yourself, you want to dial *6. And in order to raise or lower your hand, you will dial *9. For folks who are participating through Zoom, in order to raise your hand, depending on which version of Zoom you have, the raise hand function is either under the reactions button at the bottom of your screen or the participants button at the bottom of your screen. And that being said, I believe that we do have 2 Robin Morgans in again. Patrick? We have 2 Robin Morgans in the meeting again. Would you like to recognize one of them so that we can just, okay, both of them is great.
Hi. This is me, Robin. It's not letting me start my video, but the other Robin is my mom. I was using her computer and she can't figure out how to get it to log back into her Zoom account. So she's a District 2 meeting member, also Georgia Morgan, but it's
That's what we assumed. Just wanted to double check and make sure. Thanks, Robin. Okay, with that, is there anybody else that we need to get? Oh, iPhone. There's somebody named iPhone. If you can just unmute when you get the invite and introduce yourself so we know that you are a District 2 town meeting member. Okay, so let's do the iPhone first and then we'll do the summer. Okay, person who's listed as iPhone, Patrick is sending you an invitation to unmute yourself. If you can just identify yourself, that would be helpful.
I mean, I think I'm unmuted anyway right now. Am I?
We're hearing you.
Okay.
I don't know if
I'm Summer.
Summer. Okay, so you're different than the iPhone, but go ahead, Summer.
I'll try to change my iPad to say Summer.
So you're on twice, I think. There's one that's listed as Summer, and then there's somebody else listed as iPhone.
Okay, I could be the other person.
Okay, so you're probably listed as Summer, I'm guessing. What is your last name?
Price.
Price. Okay. We don't have a Summer Price in District 2.
I probably have the wrong district. I just guessed which my district was.
Okay. Let's double check that.
All the information on meetings.
So Summer, your District 1 and your caucus has already been completed. So if you'll join back with us at 7:30 for the information meeting, that would be wonderful.
I will. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thank you. Bye. Yep. Okay, let's start with iPhone. Have we been able to unmute iPhone? Okay, iPhone, if you can please identify yourself.
Hey, everybody. It's Sheila Linton, District 2.
Perfect. You are all set. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And then who is the last person? I'm not seeing them on. Okay. Sorry, everyone. We're going to spend the whole time doing housekeeping instead of the meeting. Okay. Okay, so the last person doesn't seem to be coming into the meeting, so Margaret, why don't we pass it over to you and you can work your magic in the next like 18 minutes. And you're muted currently, so I think Patrick needs to invite you to unmute again, please, Patrick. Yes, Margaret muted herself again. Can you please invite her to unmute?
Hi, folks. So if people want to be recognized by raising their hand, I'm hoping that Patrick will also be able to pay attention to that because I'm sure it's the same for everybody, but there's so many of us here, we're taking up 2 screens. So, you know, some people I might be able to see right away. You know, so just be patient with us for that. It's, you know, we don't mean anything by it. We're doing the best we can. The first order of business, and I'm going to try to move this along, is we need nominations for the chair for District 2. I'll recognize anyone with their hand up for that.
Kurt Dimes currently has his hand up.
Kurt. You can speak, Kurt.
I nominate you, Margaret. And I hope we could just unmute everybody and that would simplify everything.
Molly Burke has a hand up.
Molly Burke has a hand up.
I'd like to second the nomination for Margaret.
Great, thank you. Are there any other nominations?
No other hands are up.
Seeing none, thanks, folks. I'm happy to do this again. We will move on from there. Is there, I see a hand up from Ricky.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I just have a slow computer at the library, so I did want to nominate myself, though.
Great. Is anyone want to second that? Because we can have a vote, that's fine. Kurt?
I will second the motion for Ricky to also be the chairperson.
Great. So we're gonna any other nominations? So hearing none, we should have a vote that will be done by some process that Hillary will tell us about.
Yes, so if you just bear with Patrick for a moment, he needs to pull the poll together. And anybody who's logged in through Zoom should see a poll pop up on their screen with both Margaret's and Ricky's name on it. And you will vote for one of the 2 options. And then Patrick, once that's closed, he'll give you a heads up prior to closing that vote. And then Patrick will populate your screen with the results shortly after.
I see a hand up, Tom Muskowski. Muskowski, sorry.
So Patrick is currently working on the poll, and it's hard for him to work on the poll and unmute somebody. So just bear with him while he works on the poll, and then he will recognize Tom.
Hi there. Just hoping that each of the candidates will speak a bit about why they think they're well suited instead of just going right to the poll.
Sure. In the interest of time, I'll just defer to Ricky. She wants to give a reason why she should be the chair.
They're listed under Brooks Zoom 2, if that helps, Patrick. So perhaps in the interest of time, while Patrick is trying, oh, you got it. Okay.
Hi. So I would appreciate this opportunity as a way to help co-facilitate the adaption that we're having at meetings. I get the feeling like we're being really kind of like herded like cattle with very limited ways of actually having conversations with each other, and just for the time, for the sake of condensing us into a time that's efficient for people who are currently paid. And like, I understand that there are deadlines, but I think that there needs to be more compromise to like things as simple as taking seriously that like the point of order proposal that we could use by having the slow down reaction is just an important part of enabling Robert's rules and opening communication with each other during these meetings.
So,
No, I think Margaret still needs to speak.
I was asked by our previous chair to be the District 2 caucus person because, mainly I've been a longtime member of the town meeting body, and I, have had some experience at running some meetings. I certainly regret that this format makes it much more difficult for us to meet in person and to have the kind of interaction that I think folks have grown used to, and to also have the time and the space to discuss things more thoroughly. I think that District 2 folks should, do what they think is necessary to be both efficient and to have folks be heard. And I'm trying to help people do that in this really, really difficult format. So.
Okay, Patrick, I think we're ready for the poll. Okay, so we are closing the polls and it looks like the results are in. So Margaret Atkinson is your continuing chair. Okay, so Patrick, I think you need to unmute Margaret again, please.
Great, thanks. Thanks, folks. So the main order of business is that we have one seat to fill for District 2, which I have to say is terrific. I'm really glad that the folks who've served in the past, that we've filled all our seats. We have, as a district, a really good record of having folks step up and be members of town meeting. So hooray for us. I believe we have several candidates who are on the phone. And so we're gonna have them introduce themselves one by one, and then we will have a vote. And we have 8 minutes left in this meeting, so folks should introduce themselves as quickly and thoroughly as possible.
So Margaret, I'm only seeing one person on the phone.
Oh, I thought there was 2 phone numbers. Okay, well, okay.
And it's the number ending in 5090. So if that number, if you would like to unmute yourself, you can do so by pressing *6. And then
I think I figured it out.
Awesome.
Hi. So This is Jessica Gelter. I ran for select board this past election cycle and was elected to the select board. I'm not serving yet, but will be serving after representative town meeting day, and I am interested in engaging in the process and stepping up to be a town meeting rep.
And so folks, welcome, just so folks understand this, because Jessica is going to be a town meeting member, select board member, excuse me, she will resign this seat when she is sworn in as select board member, and so the seat will then be open again. Odds are we may not need another town meeting until next year, so and Hillary can clarify if we do have to have another meeting. I don't know whether we would then have another caucus to fill the seat or not. We would.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so we don't lose out on a spot. If this happens. There was a person at the beginning of the meeting who had signed on, but they are not here now.
I'm not seeing them on. If there's somebody that's in that I'm not seeing and you'd like to be recognized, if you dial *9, that will bring you to the top and we'll see that your hand is raised. I'm seeing that Robin Morgan's hand is raised, but I'm not seeing another caller and I didn't catch their name.
Okay. So it was Janine Giaquante. Okay, we're not hearing from her, but Robin, you're recognized to speak.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say I did not get the window to vote on the last one. And I don't know if that's because I have 2 of me logged into the meeting.
Sorry, Robin, that's exactly it. If there's 2 people logged in under the same name, only one of you is going to be able to vote.
I see. Okay.
So, we have
Gary Stroud has a hand up.
Yep, Gary.
So I'm trying to understand, how does that work, since Ms. Gelter is going to be on select board and she's applying for District 2 reps, and when we have our RTMs, how's that going to work?
So she is not a select board member until after town meeting. So she does not take up the office until the next select board meeting after town meeting. So she's currently not a member of the town meeting body, and she is also currently not a select board member. She's a select board member elect. Does that make sense?
His hand is back up.
Yeah, I kind of got muted pretty quick there, Patrick. Well, yeah, it makes sense. So that's why it's always good to know how that works. That's the first time I've ever heard or seen anything like that. So I was just curious how that works myself. So
It's an unusual situation.
Yes. Because we don't have other 2 candidates. Were there other candidates that were just Ms. Gelter?
Yeah, it just seems that there's just this one candidate.
Oh, okay.
So that being said, I would ask that we do this by acclamation. So if it's a little bit backwards, but if anybody objects to this appointment, I would ask that they raise their hand. So, and if not, we will add Ms. Gelter to District 2 town meeting for this one meeting. So are we seeing any hands?
Oh, Kurt Dime's hand just went up.
Would you like to be recognized?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Ms. Giaquinto didn't get the right phone number. And I don't think this is a really good process. It's so rushed. It's just, it's terrible. And Jessica, I mean, she can join for this meeting, but that would prevent another person from being on for the whole year. So anyway, I don't like this process, and I think it's unfair to Ms. Jaquinto.
We can just do one with Gelter and whoever.
So are we sure that she got the right number?
I gave the number. I don't know if she wrote it down wrong or misheard. I gave the number. So we could do a poll with the two names and people could vote, but the problem is I don't have a way to contact her to get the information to her unless somebody has her contact information that they can pass to me. Kurt Dime's hand is up again.
Yeah, Kurt.
I have her number. I can give it to you.
Okay. So if, do you have the spelling of her last name so that Patrick can do a poll?
Yeah, it's the greatest last name, Giaquinto. Giaquinto.
Okay.
And she's new to town. Well, she'll be able to tell you.
Well, she's not going to be telling us now. I just need to be able to get her the information if she's elected.
Oh, she can't speak for herself then. All right.
Yeah, if she's not in the meeting. And is she actually, so sorry, I'm just double checking. Kurt, she is not currently registered to vote.
She is, or she believes she is. In Brattleboro.
So sorry, it's Giaquinto.
Yes, she told me she was registered to vote.
She is not currently registered to vote, and that's a requirement to be a town meeting member.
Well, of course. Well, then I'm sorry I bothered everybody with this.
So Kurt, I hear you, this process is really difficult. And again, in our past time when folks could show up at the meeting and present themselves, it's a lot easier. And so, again, and I think we're trying to be as fair as we possibly can given the technology and the circumstances. So again, I will say, just make sure if there are no objections, we will name Miss Geller to the spot.
Oh, Gary Stroud's hand is up. Would you like to recognize him, Margaret?
Yes, Gary.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I guess my question is, how many people applied for this position, for this one position? Just two?
That we've heard from.
We've heard from, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. All right. Thank you.
So the process for folks who might be new to town meeting, the process has always been that at the caucus, if there were spots open, people can come to the caucus meeting and present themselves as candidates. In years past, if we haven't filled all the seats, there was another round of caucusing early in the morning before town meeting, where again, people would present themselves in person as candidates so that we could possibly fill all the seats. So there's, some requirements that folks, show up at the caucus, and I think we've, done the best we can with the phone and Zoom to have people at least have some presence. So if there are no more objections, we will appoint Jessica Gelter to the seat. Going once, going twice. Good. Well, thank you. We are over time, but Hillary,
I just wanted to remind everybody, we are going to go into the District 3 caucus momentarily. So we'll need everybody to log out, please, and then you'll want to log back in sometime between 7:15 and 7:30 for the information session. And Margaret, if you can stay on just for a moment after, please.
thanks, folks.
So Margaret, I'll email you this evening or tomorrow to schedule a time for us to meet outside for you to just sign the paperwork.
Yes, so yeah, and I'll show up as
Wonderful. I like that.
Yeah, sorry that was so painfully long, but we'll.
It was mostly housekeeping more than anything else.
All right, see you around.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Bye. Okay, yes, thank you. So it's 6:46. We're going to get started, if that's okay, Bob. And so I'm going to just open real quick with some housekeeping before I pass it over to Mr. Ozer to run the meeting. So welcome everyone to the 2021 District 3 caucus for representative town meeting. Because immediately after this meeting, the information meeting is starting. We do have a hard stop at 7:15. And so there are a couple things that we need to make sure get covered in this meeting. Number one is choosing a district chair. And then the second is hopefully appointing people to serve for a one-year term for our 2 open town meeting member seats. Give me one moment.
350 for Mon, we'll let in. I'm not sure who it is.
Okay. So if you are currently not an elected town meeting member of District 3, we are going to ask that you leave the meeting and dial in by phone if you're looking to be caucused in, appointed as a town meeting member. If you're a member of a different district, please leave and come back for the information session. And that's the purpose of that, is for vote integrity. If you are dialing in by phone, in order to mute or unmute yourself, please dial *6. And if you need to raise or lower your hand, please dial *9. And if you're in the Zoom meeting, in order to raise your hand at the bottom of your screen, depending on which version of Zoom you have, you can go to the reactions button or the participants button, and there's a raise hand feature there. And bear with me just one moment. Our wonderful Assistant Town Manager Patrick Moreland is
Anne
here.
Marie. We don't know who Anne Marie is.
Okay, so we have 2 people that we just need to identify. One is Anne Marie. If you can please unmute yourself when you are given that option.
Was it Anne Louise?
Patrick said Anne Marie.
Anne Marie.
Hi, I don't know if it's me, but my name is Anne Louise Wagner.
Yes.
Oh.
It might be Anne Wagner as the legal name, but Anne Louise is my first name.
Okay, is that who you were asking about, Patrick? Okay,
So
you're all set.
Anne
Thank you.
Louise, and you live down the street.
And then the other person that we just need help identifying is 350 Vermont. And you'll receive an unmute. There we go.
Hi. I can't start my video. Yeah, I'm logged in as my work for some reason.
Okay, so can you just identify yourself so that we know who you
sorry,
are?
Sonia Silbert.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sonia. Okay, anybody else, Patrick, or can we get started?
There's one phone number listed.
Okay, great. Yep, the phone number is somebody that we can identify when the time comes, because they're likely a member of the public looking to be caucused in. So Bob, I will pass it over to you to start with the district chair process.
Okay. So this is great. Whole lot of people come here. We have 30 participants according to the Zoom count. I guess our first order of business is to figure out who would be the district chair. And I'm open to suggestions. I don't know how we do that, how people unmute or.
Yeah, so if somebody has a nomination, they just need to raise their hand and I'll let you know if you don't see it and you can recognize them and then Patrick will invite them to unmute themselves. So Fidel currently has a hand up.
Fidel has a hand up. And
I
Fidel,
nominate Robert Ozier.
okay. Do you know if he's willing to run? Do we need a second on that or no?
Joe Lum is all set. Joe Lum can come in.
Okay.
And sorry, I'm talking to Patrick as we're
No, I
doing this.
understand.
And I'm not sure who Catherine is. You can certainly invite them in and we can find out. But I think after this, what's that? Yep, we just need to find out. So Catherine, if you can unmute yourself. It is? Okay, we're all set. You're good, Catherine. Okay, sorry, Bob. And
Okay.
I think going forward, we just need to continue on.
So Fidel just nominated Robert Ozier, yours truly, for chair. Are there any other nominations for chair of the district?
So Tom Green has a hand up.
Tom Green. He does. And
Does the nomination require a second? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, then I second Bob Ozier.
okay, thank you, Tom. And
John
John Lightfoot had his hand up, and then Millicent.
I was just going to second you, so we're good.
And Millicent, I think Millicent's hand went down. I'm not sure. Yep. Millicent, did you want to say? No. Any other?
Fidel has a hand up. Bob, we can't hear you all of a sudden. I would assume that you called on Fidel, but Bob, we can't hear you.
Fidel's hand
Move
is
the
up again.
nominations close. Move the nomination cease.
Yes, unless you want another nomination.
No, God, no.
Okay. All those in favor?
So Bob, I think
anyone opposed?
Anyone opposed?
Anyone opposed? And I guess you raise your hand if you're opposed, right?
Correct.
And I see no hands. So I guess we're open to accepting new members. We have 2 vacancies, is that correct?
Yes.
And I don't know if there's any, but there was one phone number in the stack. And I don't know if that's a person who's interested.
Would you like to recognize number ending in 8213?
Let's see, 8213, yes. Could you identify yourself?
So again, in order to unmute yourself, you need to press *6.
Hi, yeah, this is my name is Matthew Cunningham Cook, and my wife's name is.
My name is Mtg Ferguson.
And yeah, we'd both like to be caucused in.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your wife's name.
Matthew.
Yeah, you're gonna spell the first name.
Oh, my name is Mtg Ferguson.
Could you spell your first name?
Sure. Mekebes.
Mekeb.
Mekedes.
Okay. Do you have that, Hillary?
I do. I'm just double checking to make sure that they are registered in the correct district.
Okay.
So Matthew, it looks like you are registered in District 2.
So that was a mistake.
Sorry. Okay.
Can you just confirm, are you still on Chestnut Street?
No, yeah, we're not on Chestnut Street. We're on 6 Elliott Street now,
Okay.
but we just moved back in town and we just registered. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if things might be fully up to date yet. But if you check with the town clerk tomorrow, they will confirm, I believe, that we're in District 2. Yeah.
I am the town clerk, so I'm just double checking.
Oh, okay.
We'll be checking
Sorry,
right
I
now.
apologize.
Sorry, just give me one more moment. Okay, yes, I see that. I'm looking at a different system and I see that you are on Elliott Street, which is perfect. And then let me just check. Sorry, just bear with me. Yes, okay, you're both registered in District 3. Perfect.
Okay. So we have two openings in District 3. We have 2 candidates for District 3. Do you say anything in support of your appointment? Matthew and Mcadis?
Yeah, that we want to say? Oh,
Did you
yeah,
want- did you wanna
we're
say
just,
anything? Introduce yourselves to the group.
yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, so I grew up here in Brattleboro, and my son was born here, and we just moved back after 5 years of East Coast cities, and I'm a journalist and a union organizer. So that's me. Yeah, and yeah, love Brattleboro and love clean air and clean water, and yeah.
And refreshing to see someone moving back to Brattleboro. And Mcadis, did I say that right?
Yeah, it's close enough. It's good.
Oh,
It's okay. It's Mcadis.
Meg.
So, yeah. So what did you want to hear about me?
If you wanted to say something or not.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. My name is Mcadis, and I also grew up in Vermont, but not in Brattleboro. And what I love about Vermont is also just fresh air, clean water, nature. Yeah. And I've lived in Brattleboro before too.
Okay. So members assembled here, we have 2 vacancies, 2 candidates stepping forward to take those positions. Anyone opposed to these 2 candidates filling those positions? If you have any opposition, raise your hand. I see a hand. Christopher Kane. Is Christopher Kane unmuted?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I actually don't have any opposition. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any other candidates trying to get in.
Good point. All candidates would have to be on a telephone call, so.
Okay, so there are no other candidates?
I don't, well, Patrick would probably for sure, but I see no other telephones in the
I'm not
slot.
seeing any other phone numbers.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion, Chris. Seeing that there are no more nominations, anyone opposed to Matthew and Mcadis being appointed as District 3 town meeting members? Any hands in the stack? Seeing none, I think we filled our vacancies. There's some paperwork that needs to be filled out. I
Yes,
believe.
so Bob, I will send you an email over like probably this evening or tomorrow so that we can arrange a time to meet outside so that you can fill out the paperwork. Matthew and Mcadis, I'll need, is the 215 number the best phone number to reach you?
Yes.
Okay, for both of you?
Yeah, they're both good. Yeah.
Okay. And I'll probably give you a call in a moment, just to get your email address so that we can make sure that we're getting you all of the information that you need for the meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. And everybody else, you're welcome to stay on until 7:30, or you can log off and then log back on.
Well, anybody have any opinions with respect to the warning? Do you want to stay? Oh, France is here. Now, if anyone wants to be unmuted, they would have to raise their hand. Is that still the case? So it'd be hard to carry on a discussion unless you have a prepared statement in advance. Okay. Does that require a second?
No, I don't. I don't think so. No second.
Anyone opposed to adjourn? Oh, I thought I saw another hand. Christopher. Christopher has his hand up.
One opposed.
I'm sorry, did you say
One opposed.
you're opposed to adjourning?
What do we got?
Did you
Another
have a question? Did
12
you want
minutes?
something to discuss? Huh? Did you want to say something, Christopher?
No, no, I have nothing to say.
Spoon has his hand up. And Spoon is unmuted. And then France. Spoon? No. Spoon's still there. Spoon, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. France is unmuted.
Hi, actually, I'm invading your meeting since I'm actually in District 2, but I just want to say that the motion to adjourn does require a second, but it is non-debatable. As soon as it's seconded, it goes immediately to a vote.
Thank you. And the Spoon is still unmuted. Okay, there's a motion to adjourn. So we would require a second. I guess you can raise your hand. Louise Zach, you've raised your hand.
I second the motion.
Okay. All those opposed to adjourning, please raise your hand. So we'll see you back at the informational meeting, which will occur at 7:30. I guess we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, I have 7:30, so having never done this before, and of course, it never happening before, but this, you have joined us. Welcome for the Representative Town Meeting Information Meeting Presentation, as it's officially called. This is going to be, and I'm your host, Tim Wessel. My co-pilot tonight you'll be hearing a lot from Peter Elwell, who's just in my screen just below to my right. And I think I just want to say thank you to everybody for serving your town, whether you're here as an employee, or you're here as an RTM member or a select board member. Thank you for the service to your town, which you are stepping up to do. And it's a wonderful thing because we have a wonderful town. I just wanted to say that, I took a quick look back at the last year's informational meeting for RTM, and that was led by Brandy Starr. And it was a different world, wasn't it, for all of us? The really interesting thing, and I can make the link available, anybody can go see it on the BCTV site, is that we're all up there on the dais, the table for the select board. Bob's with us, Peter's with us, and we're all obsessed with the sanitizing our hands. And we're like 6 inches from each other with no masks. So from our perspective now, it feels quaint, doesn't it? But that's how the year went. It's been quite a year. And I just wanted to make note of that and really sort of appreciate it. And if I don't seem like I know what I'm doing, it's because no one's ever done the info meeting via Zoom before. However, we have done representative town meeting very well, I think, by Zoom. And I'm pretty excited to see it happen again. I'm sure we'll get even better at it because we are all so much more familiar with this type of communication, I think. To remind everybody, this meeting is simply informational because we don't want to we try to stay away from the rabbit holes of arguing a point one side or the other. I'm going to point out a few instances where if there was a difference of opinion among the select board of what went forward, I might point that out, but I'm not going to editorialize, and I would urge the rest of the board not to do so. But the rest of the board should jump in if I leave something out, which I'm sure I will. And if Peter leaves something out, I think it should be pretty casual. You can still raise your hand. Everybody who's on the screen, obviously, I'll be watching. And then for each article, mostly, I think we'll definitely take questions right then and there. I think that's what we said might be best, right, Peter? Rather than save things towards the end, just so people have a chance to raise a hand. And then at the end, we might do a catch-all thing as well. Okay. So we have a couple of hands, which is unexpected, but let's see if I had something else. I was going to read the top of the warning just to sort of make it feel official. The legal voters qualified to vote in representative town meeting are hereby notified and warned to meet on Zoom on Saturday, March 20th, 2021 at 8:30 a.m. to act on the articles listed below. Articles that have not been discussed by 5 p.m. will be moved to a later meeting unless the body votes to continue. If not all articles are acted upon on March 20th, then the meeting will continue on March 21st, 2021. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take Ricky Rosati's hand before we get started with going down on the articles. Ricky, do you want to make a comment on something very quickly?
Hi, I was wondering if we could recognize the slow down reaction as meaning a point of order so that there could be a differentiation for, I think the chair is serving as the moderator for who is selected to speak when. And so maybe you could prioritize a slow down reaction by recognizing that it's a point of order for whatever rules people may want to contest that the forum isn't respecting. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think a point of order for an information meeting would really serve much purpose. Does it? Anybody else have an opinion about that? Anybody else up here at the table with me? Okay. Kurt, you are next.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm not very happy about the way my caucus went. Some of the time here could have been allotted for the caucuses. District 1 had 5:15 to 5:45, and District 2 had 6 to 6:30, and District 3 had whatever, half an hour strictly enforced. In our district, no blame at all on our chairperson. We didn't even have time for the candidates to the open seat to introduce themselves. We didn't have time to welcome our new members. And one of our members said we were being treated like cattle. And that's all for a rush because of COVID, because of the Zoom. And now we will hear the select board's proposal, and suddenly there are no limits on the time. This part of tonight's festivities has no deadline. Why is that?
Because it's hold on, it's an information meeting, Kurt. This is just
why not limit that instead of limiting the caucuses?
Well,
I want to say to people, we should see our town charter. The RTM is supposed to be the guiding body for the town, and the select board controls the RTM agenda, and it is select board's duty to provide RTM with the time to do our job, not just giving us time to listen to you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Kurt. I don't think the caucus times were any different than they were in regular pastimes. But again, I didn't have anything to do with the caucus, and we're simply running this meeting because it's literally our budget. So we should be answering questions along with town staff on that budget. So let's proceed. Article 1 is to act on the town's, I'm going to name a few early articles that don't really have probably a lot of controversy involved or questions. So I will go down them, the first 3, and just ask if anybody has questions about those. Article 1 is to act on the town auditor's report. Article 2 is to see if the town will authorize its select board to employ a certified public accountant or public accountants. Article 3 is to see if the town will ratify, approve, and confirm the select board's appointment of a town clerk for a term of 1 year. If anybody has questions for those 3, pertaining to those 3 articles, just raise your hand. And if not, I'm going to hand things over to Peter, who's going to speak to Article 4, which is to approve and confirm the select board's appointment of an interim town treasurer. Peter?
Thank you. Yes, and just a quick announcement, clarification, make sure that everyone is aware. It's the same announcement, unfortunately, that we had last year, which is that we currently have an interim town treasurer, and Debbie DeRozier, who is the assistant town treasurer, is doing a fine job in that position. We are in between finance directors in March of 2021, as we were in March of 2020. In between, we actually had a finance director again, and that didn't work out last summer. And so we're recruiting again. And we have some positive indications. We have some interviews coming up, and I am hopeful that we'll be able to fill that important position and get back to full staffing in the finance department. But for the moment, we're still functioning with a contractual finance director. We have a agreement with the firm of Melanson, PA, and the principal from that firm who is providing the oversight as interim finance director is Lori Garland, who is a CPA. She's an experienced auditor, and she has performed municipal audits for 2 different cities in Vermont. We're in good interim hands. And the way that impacts this particular article is that we are, the language is a little different. We're asking that the appointment be ratified and confirmed for a period until there is a new finance director and treasurer appointed, rather than for a 1-year term, but it would be for up to 1 year. And we're asking that Assistant Town Treasurer Debbie DeRozier be the person who is confirmed. She has been appointed by the Select Board as the interim Town Treasurer, and we're asking for that action to be confirmed.
Thank you, Peter. Any comments or questions concerning Article 4? Okay, great. Seeing none, I'm going to sort of do the same thing on Articles 5 through 9. And I'll just read them. And then if somebody has a question along the way, raise your hand. We can always circle back if I read too fast for folks. I forgot up front to mention anybody who didn't have things in front of them, Peter. Sorry about that. Are we sure that everybody has access? Or I know they were distributed for physical pickup at the library, but a few people might not have been able to do that yet. So can you just highlight where they would find that on the town site?
Yes, I'm going to the town site to make sure that I give it accurately.
Thank you.
This is the portion of the meeting where we are improvising.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It was something I should have done.
It's a proper announcement to make, and I don't see it listed in where it would be handy to click on under news. Just one moment.
Now, don't give Ian Goodnow fodder for his.
I didn't say anything at all.
Under charter, click on that, then go down to town report.
Okay. So yes, Exhibit A for the opportunity that our website upgrade project presents to us is if you do not have a town report, a printed town report handy for this evening, and you'd like to follow along in the references that are made to the town report using the online copy, you go to on the left-hand side of the town's homepage, Charter, Ordinances, and Policies. So you go to brattleboro.org and then click on Charter, Ordinances, and Policies, or if you hover over that, a drop-down menu comes up, and at the bottom of the drop-down menu is Town Reports. Click on Town Reports, and at the very top of the list is the 2020-2021 Town Report, which is the document we'll be referencing this evening.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that homework for us, and sorry to blindside you once again.
No, that's okay. And thanks to Jan for demonstrating once again her infinite value in keeping us straight on such things.
Did we almost get a glimpse of Jan? And
you almost did.
Didn't quite get that.
I heard her in the background. Page 12 for the warning.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so moving on, we're going to take a look at Article 5. Article 5 states to see if the town will ratify, approve, and confirm the Select Board's appointment of a town attorney for a term of 1 year. And if you look carefully, you may see a town attorney on your screen in front of you. Article 6, to elect 2 representatives to the Capital Grant Review Board for a term of 1 year. Members are to be nominated from the floor. Article 7 is to see if the town will elect or appoint members to the Town Finance Committee for a term of 1 year. Members also, in this case, to be nominated from the floor. That was Article 7. Article 8 is to see if the town will elect or appoint members of the Human Services Review Committee for a term of 1 year. Again, traditionally, members are nominated from the floor. Article 9 is to elect 3 trustees for the Brooks Memorial Library to serve 3 years, and 1 trustee to fill a 1-year unexpired term. The names for consideration for the term 2021 to 2024 are Jennifer Rowe, Leo Schiff, and Gabriel Sistare, I think that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. The people for the one-year term, 2021 to 2022, will be nominated from the floor. Now, Article 10 is something that Peter is going to speak to for us. Please.
Thank you. So it is not common or frequent, but it does occasionally happen that something arises during the course of a fiscal year where the select board needs to make an emergency authorization for a capital expense. And it happened twice this past year, which was very unusual. We had the animal control officer's vehicle was actually scheduled to be replaced in this upcoming fiscal year. It was in the 25-year capital equipment replacement plan for FY22 at a cost of $36,000, estimated cost of $36,000. The vehicle actually failed during the course of this past fiscal year. It could have been repaired, but the cost of the repairs would have been several $1,000s and greater than the value remaining in the vehicle. So we came to the select board, staff came to the select board, explained the situation, and asked for the opportunity to proceed with an emergency authorization to replace the vehicle at a cost of not to exceed $28,000. So the cost that we identified as the estimated cost of replacing the vehicle is actually $8,000 less than what had been projected in the planning process. Once we had actually looked at the vehicles that were available and that we could move quickly on if the select board did approve the emergency purchase. The select board did approve that we proceed at a cost not to exceed $28,000. The final actual cost of the purchase was $27,267. And we have intentionally left in the FY22 budget the $36,000 that had originally been forecast for this item. It is part of the equipment replacement part, the portion of the capital request that identifies the equipment to be replaced. And we did that in order to replenish the capital fund for this particular part. I'm going to speak to the second one, which was a more costly emergency purchase, in a moment. And that one, because it was not planned and not forecast, we're not asking for any appropriation of funds to replenish. We're just drawing down the capital fund balance for that one. So, so that, I hope, makes clear what happened with the animal control officer's vehicle. The other item was the salt shed. And folks may remember that for several years now, we've been concerned about the condition of the salt shed and expressing that it may not last until we could do a well-planned replacement of it. We had hoped that we might get a few more years out of it. And about this time last year, a little later into the spring, it became unsafe. It actually was sagging in ways that were of great concern. We got an engineer to take a look at it. He said nobody should go inside it any longer. And we made arrangements for it to be safely demolished. We then came to the select board and asked for an appropriation of an amount not to exceed $80,750. That was based on research we had done about how to replace the salt shed with a modern structure. And there was a cost savings element to that, where instead of buying the whole structure from ground up, the foundation of it is created with very large concrete blocks. And so it was two separate purchases that together added up to $78,250 under the $80,750 that was authorized as a not to exceed figure. And that was the blocks being purchased and placed, and then the structure of the salt shed being installed on top of those blocks.
Thank you, Peter. I will pause a little bit to see if anybody's hand goes up. Board members, anything to add on those?
While we wait to see if there's a hand, I'll just add, I think the experienced representative town meeting members will know this, but I'd like to make sure that everyone does. It is required that anytime we do make an emergency purchase during the year in this manner, that it come to the next representative town meeting to be ratified. And that's why Article 10 exists this year, and these two actions of the select board are being brought to RTM for ratification.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, Tim, you've got a hand.
Thank you. I was about to move on, and then I see Tom's hand. So Tom, please join us. Patrick will send you, and here we go. Hi, Tom.
There we go. Okay. Hear me now?
We hear you. We don't see you, but that's okay.
Yeah. How does money get into the capital fund balance?
How does money get into?
Yeah, where does it come from?
It comes from the net savings over time of projects. So occasionally a project goes over, or a capital purchase of a piece of equipment is more expensive than anticipated. But most of the time, these two purchases are really good examples of how we try to make sure that we budget sufficiently that we can bring the purchase in slightly under the estimated cost. And over time, those savings accrue to where we are able to maintain a substantial enough fund balance in the capital fund. It's always reported as part of the annual audit. You know, the tracking of that is transparent, but it's not exactly planned and calculated. It's the result of the accumulation of savings from the variety of different purchases that we make each year in the capital fund. And it's important that we manage the fund that way and always do have some fund balance, because of moments like this where needs arise. In some cases, it's, let's say, $100,000 purchase or project that comes in at 110, so you need a little bit to cover that extra. But at other times, it's something that's completely unbudgeted, like the salt shed. And so being able to draw down that fund balance and make the emergency purchase is made possible by the accumulation of these savings.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And I forgot to ask Tom, so I'll ask Dr. Tortolani to introduce himself as he comes up, possibly your district.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Just curious as to what it costs to demolish the old shed. I didn't hear that price or that amount. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Steve Barrett is in the meeting and hopefully has that at his fingertips. I don't. And sorry, if Steve doesn't, then we'll make sure we provide it to the RTM members before March 20th.
Steve, are you by your computer? It was in bad shape, I know. Perhaps it was just pushed down by hand.
Well, it almost. We did hire a contractor to do it properly and safely, of course, but it really only took a nudge from the piece of heavy equipment that was there, and then it tipped over and fell upon itself.
Here's Steve.
Hi, Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works. It costs $9,000 for the materials to dispose of them. The slate, we were able to have a contractor come in and take the slate away at the cost of getting the slate. So basically, it was just a demo of the wooden material, $9,000.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. That was Article 10. Sorry, I lost my place for a moment. The next article is Article 11, and that has to do with the water treatment plant reconstruction project. Now that has its own meeting, folks. So I think we're going to defer to that very important meeting, which I hope you can all attend. By the way, attendance here tonight is outstanding. So thank you so much, everyone. I see 113, and even including town staff, etc. That's great attendance, I think. Hillary does have a hand up.
Tim, why don't you mention when when that meeting is?
I was about to, but let me just take Hillary, just in case I've said something wrong.
Not at all. Thanks, Tim. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that while we're discussing Article 11 in a week, ballots will be mailed out to everybody either tomorrow or Friday. So if you get a ballot in the mail from the town clerk's office, that's what it's about. And just follow the instructions. It's all laid out in there. If you have questions, call the town clerk's office.
Yes, thank you. Very important detail there that I didn't have in my notes. So I'm glad you jumped in there. So again, this urgently needed project unanimously felt that way by all of your select board and I think all town staff. The meeting for that is going to be next Wednesday, so 1 week from tonight at 7:30, using this very same Zoom link. So you can use the same link and the same passcode to access that meeting. And so it should be promptly at 7:30. There won't be caucuses, obviously, to have to deal with then. So that is Article 11. Going to Article 12, to see if the town will authorize its select board to borrow money in anticipation of taxes, grants, and other revenue. Very possibly one of the most important articles, but not controversial. So I'm going to continue on unless I see a hand. Article 13, to see what compensation the town will pay its select board members. Now, this is like the opposite of the previous article. It's simple, but it will probably get a good amount of conversation, and as it should. We kicked it around quite a bit on the board. Where we landed was where we usually land, which is to kick that to representative town meeting. And I won't say any more just because it'll tempt me to editorialize too much. Any other board members want to characterize that article at all? Point of information anywhere? Daniel.
I guess my point of information would be that the discussion we had at the board was not so much a discussion about what we want, but a creation of space for discussion in advance of representative town meeting at the request of several members of the public.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. That was Article 13. Lucky 13. Article 14 and 15 is going to be addressed by Peter. So I'm going to kick it over to Peter before I say something weird.
Thank you. So these two articles address use of fund balance. Funds accumulate within the general fund balance, as you know, similarly to what we discussed a few minutes ago regarding the capital fund balance, except to a much greater extent over time, based on the performance of our budgets, our actual expenditures and revenues compared to what is in the annual budget. Each year, we try to make sure that the town ends with at least a small surplus. Some years we have had small surpluses, some years larger surpluses. Those funds accumulate in the general fund balance. Some of the general fund balance is reserved for certain purposes. And then there is the unassigned fund balance is what remains. We have a guideline that's been adopted over a decade ago that we adhere to that says that we should set aside 10% of the unassigned fund balance as our funds that would be available in an extreme emergency. And that most recently occurred during the recovery from Tropical Storm Irene. Having a policy like that and some funds set aside is very important so as to be able to act quickly in such circumstances and avoid having to borrow funds to address those kinds of emergencies. And in the meantime, we earn funds on the money that the town invests. So that is the way that we have fund balance to work with. How much is available to work with in any given year depends on a variety of factors, but primarily upon how much of a surplus there was from the prior year's operations. This past year, for a variety of reasons, mostly related to a few sources of income of town revenue coming in significantly higher than expected, and some savings on expenditures in the early months of COVID. The combination of those two things led to a larger than normal surplus, and therefore a larger than normal amount of funds available to apply in use of fund balance to capital expenses. The policy that we adhered to, it's an informal policy, but it's a commitment that this select board and prior select boards have made to use fund balance only for non-recurring expenses, mostly capital expenses over the years. Tonight, we have actually a non-capital expense to talk about that's pretty exciting, as I demonstrated clumsily at the beginning of the meeting. But the point is that it doesn't have to be a capital expense. It really, though, ought to be a non-recurring expense, because if we rely on the fund balance to supply the funding for recurring expenses in a year, then when we have less of it to use, we will find ourselves in a painful position of having to substantially increase taxes just to stay where we are, as opposed to doing that in order to accomplish some greater positive impact for the community. So that's the background to these two items. Normally, we do use fund balance every year, and normally there is just one article that addresses that. This year there are two, because Article 15 is requesting the allocation of $75,000 from the unassigned fund balance to be spent on upgrading the town's website and some related work regarding community engagement. So it's that is a non-recurring. This is going to be a project, a major project that we'll undertake with a lot of involvement of the public in, first identifying what we are seeking by way of an improved website and better community engagement, and then actually in executing that project and accomplishing those goals. So $75,000 is what is being budgeted for that, and because it is a non-recurring expense, we're asking that fund balance be allocated to it. And then there's $530,000 that are the sort of more normal approach to use of fund balance, like allocating it to capital improvements. One of these, I'd like to speak for a second about the recurring, non-recurring aspect of this. One of these is very clearly not a recurring expense. That's the Gibson Aiken Center LULA, the limited use, limited access elevator that's in the Gibson Aiken Center. We're a few years overdue to replace that. It's been out of service frequently in recent years. So $130,000 of this would be for that replacement, which is really urgent and non-recurring. While the sidewalks and the paving are programs that we do, there's some of this type of work every year. So these in isolation represent recurring expenses. The exercise we go through in the preparation of this particular article is to look for items that are capital expenses that will frankly add to the appropriate number. So in total, what the use of fund balance for capital does is allow us to accomplish more capital work. There is a set of capital projects and capital equipment that is requested as part of the proposed budget. And in the absence of this $530,000, we would have had to either raise these funds through several additional pennies on the tax rate, which would have been very unlikely, or what would be more likely is we would have been able to accomplish less of it. We would have had to pare back the proposed work that is to be done. Some very important work this year up at Memorial Park, and some other projects that we can speak to if folks have questions about the list. So I want to be clear that while the sidewalks and the paving were chosen because they're nice round numbers and they help to make the math of this article work, I'd like folks not to be confused by the fact that those are recurring. What we're doing here is accomplishing a greater amount of infrastructure work than we would otherwise be able to by applying the fund balance to these projects. In total, the 530 for the capital projects and the 75 for the website upgrade amount to $605,000. When deducting that from the amount of unassigned fund balance that's currently available, we do still retain slightly in excess of 10%, meeting our guideline.
Thank you, Peter. Liz.
So Peter, your answer about Article 10 regarding the capital fund,
yes,
what you just explained for Article 14 is essentially another way for funds to enter the capital fund, correct?
That is, yes, the primary way in which funds enter the capital fund is as budgetary allocations from the general fund. We transfer in every year from the general fund to the capital fund in the amount that we expect to be spending for the projects and equipment replacement in that fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thanks to you both. Let me take Dick DeGray's hand. Welcome. Step up to the microphone.
There we go. Yeah, we here now?
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Part of you.
Actually, if listening to what Peter said, if people turn to 123 in their book, in the audit report, and I encourage people to read that, I guess I would disagree a little bit with Peter said. Actual expenditures were less than budgeted expenses by 300,550. So that's a really significant number underspent in last year's budget. And I draw that to your attention. The 83,900 was for revenue, unanticipated revenue. One of the questions you answered, Peter, I thank you for that. If you could give us a hard number of the unassigned fund balance, that would be great. I do have a question about one of the projects, and that is up at the swimming pool. And I think there's a $10,000 capital project. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I want to follow up with a question.
So I'll answer your question about the unassigned fund balance and ask Carol Olat to come into the meeting to and provide the additional details about the swimming pool. The unassigned fund balance at June 30, 2020, at the end of the most recent fiscal year, was $2,511,882. The 10% guideline would require that we have $1,894,893 set aside, which would leave $616,989 available for use, of which we're recommending $605,000 be used.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, Carol. Do you want to jump in and tell us about that project a little bit?
Yes, Carol Olat, Recreation and Parks Director. The project at the Living Memorial Park pool, what we would be doing is replacing, pulling out loose concrete underneath the skimmer around the perimeter of the pool. When we replaced the pool deck 2 summers ago, we were able to identify some of the problem areas behind the skimmer once the deck was pulled up, and we're able to identify that not only from the deck side, but also this summer we proceeded to have continue to have problems, and we had a diver come in and was able to do some basic surface patching underwater once the facility was open. So this project would include going in and doing a 4x6 cut around the perimeter inside the pool and removing all the loose concrete underneath the stainless steel gutter system, and then obviously replace that. And then there would be a silicone. Then there would be an additional cut filled with silicone to create a expansion joint.
we have had substantial leaking in that pool for several years. Is that correct?
That is a true story. It's a 300,000 gallon swimming pool that was built in the late 50s. And over the years, we have had a number of patch jobs that we've had to do. And yeah, it's like chasing around a leak in your bathtub, except for the bathtub holds 300,000 gallons. So.
And who pays for the water in the pool while it's leaking?
The town, that's part of the budget of the recreation parks budget.
So when you have a substantial leak, and I mean substantial, that is a significant cost to the taxpayers in the water sewer fund that no one really knows about because it's never talked about. And so the transparency on that issue is somewhat problematic for me because it has a significant financial impact just on the water usage that we lose. And we spent a significant amount of money on the pool in the last 4 or 5 years.
Go ahead, Peter. I want to jump in.
Actually, the expenditure for water at the pool is shown in the budget, as in all the other parts of the budget where water and sewer expenses appear. It's under the line utilities. That proposed budget for FY22 is $6,630, down slightly from last year at $7,360 from the budget for the year that we're in right now. And that's been pretty steady these last several years. It did used to be quite a lot higher, and there was a significant capital improvement done to reduce the amount of leakage. We weren't able to stop it completely because, as Carol said, the age of the facility and we have considered actually the possibility of a very large scale full replacement of that. Given the other capital needs of the town, we know that needs to wait, and so we're doing these occasional interim improvements to keep it functional in the meantime. But the water portion has actually been pretty steady at about $5,000 to $7,000 a year, and is proposed for $6,630 in the coming fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. And thanks, Dick. So next, I'll take Michael Bosworth's hand. Welcome.
Hi, just a question that related to Article 15. As described, it also mentioned community engagement, and I'd just like to know a little bit more about what that means in this case.
So I'll give a quick summary to it, and if I don't say enough, I know there are select board members who would probably like to add to this. There was some discussion during this budget process among the select board members and with some community members around the possibility of putting town attention and resources into specifically finding better ways to engage with the community and to not just increase sort of volume, but also hopefully quality of engagement. That's, in my wording of that, pretty vague, because frankly, where we got to was agreeing that we do the public's business and it's important for that engagement to be as effective and as impactful as possible. And there's a lot of different ways to approach it, and we know we need to do better. So as part of addressing what we know is an outdated website that needs to be both more user-friendly and easier to maintain for the town staff, likewise, we need to create a better quality community engagement, and we intend to be working on both aspects of that, defining that and then executing it as part of the implementation of this project.
I think that's pretty accurate. I think a lot of board members also, I mean, it's not an outrageous amount of money when you consider that we may have to consider building some infrastructure around that part of the community engagement. I don't know if Ian wants to make a comment around that, because I know it's definitely a project you're interested in promoting.
Yeah, thank you, Tim and Peter and Michael, for the question. I think it is pretty vague, and based on the conversations that we had on the board earlier this year around this topic, I was one of the board members who sort of brought this forward, mostly with the idea that if we're investing $75,000 in creating a new website, that's an investment in also in engagement. That COVID this year has really shown that how the town engages with its populace is very important, and it's moved more and more online. And so the conversation that happened on the board was pretty vague, but included talking about, if we're going to put this money into updating the website, it's probably going to have to incorporate more of a conversation about how the material on the website is getting out to people. And so, yeah, it is still vague, but I think I'm excited. I think it'll be a really good conversation moving forward.
Daniel?
Yeah, thanks. And what I remember us kind of having a conversation about at the time was like, did we need to define more clearly like what this other piece of it was, or would it be okay to say, hey, this is something that we're interested in principle, and when we come back to, if town meeting says, okay, you may have this money for this project, further down the road there will be more scope for defining and becoming less vague. I don't want people to think that we're happy with vague and we're just moving forward with that.
Yeah, the vagueness only comes from the fact that we just haven't had proper time to sort all this out and take community input. Seeing no other hands, Liz?
So I think what we discussed was that the specifics would reveal themselves at the time.
Right. And that is the collective intention is that be the first step, that before we actually get going into the work, that the work be better defined, that the goal of the work be better defined. And so that would happen in the months ahead if the $75,000 is authorized.
Well said. I'll take Ricky's hand. Ricky Rosati, District 2.
Hi, how can people apply to be paid to work on organizing the new website?
Well, I'm going to jump out and say that it's early to discuss that much of it, probably because we're going to take a fair amount of community input and figure out what the appropriate next steps are.
Also, from my earlier comment about the point of order, that wasn't just to apply to this meeting, but future meetings with district representatives and even select board meetings.
I see. Well, we are continually working on refining how we're utilizing Zoom for the best. Certainly, we don't, as a board, we don't want to be telling RTM how to run their meeting. But as far as this meeting is concerned, I just thought that the hand raising gives every ample opportunity to go ahead and ask whatever questions people want to ask. So, but I understand that you're referring to meetings going forward into the future. Thanks. And I have the route. So just identify yourself and your district and welcome.
Hey everybody, sorry, it won't let me change my name. Yes, I'm using my work account. That's how it be sometimes. Sheila Linton, District 2. Thank you. I just had a clarifying question about the 75,000. So you said that we would be voting on 75,000 for the development of the website, but we won't know the details of how that might come to fruition. before we actually vote the money to do it, is what I think I understood. And so I am a bit bothered by that, of like, I would like to be able to vote on the process of how it's going to be developed. And I heard that it sounds like there might be a friendly amendment or a friendly emotion that could be attached to that, a guiding, what we call as guiding whoever's going to do that work, I guess, to say, hey, let's bring a group of maybe most impacted people to the table to see if this is accessible for people with different abilities, to see if this is a cultural appropriate, to see if the language is accessible, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the things that I'm really interested in when creating a website that could be user-friendly for our community. And I feel uncomfortable with the way this is being proposed without that more explicitly being laid out as an item for us to vote on. So I know we're not in town meeting yet, but I thought I expressed that.
Okay, thanks, Sheila. Yeah, it's very hard not to start to go down the rabbit hole of actual debate, because that's what not next Saturday, but the following Saturday is for, of course. Sonia, concerning Articles 14 or 15. Hi.
Hi. Oh, we have two computers happening. Hold on, there's an echo.
It's like the old radio call-ins. Please turn down your television.
Yeah. Still on Article 15, just to clarify, is the 75,000 an estimate for just the process of building the website, which potentially includes all the community input, or is it also potentially going to be used for what I think Ian and other folks have talked about, of like a human being who's doing engagement activities? Or is the 75K really the website and the creation of it?
May I?
Sure, Peter, thank you.
By that, so the way this happened was staff brought forward a proposal to allocate $75,000 worth of fund balance to a website upgrade project. And that's why it is not more explicitly defined of exactly what would happen, because it's a budgetary ask at this point. If we, as a community, commit to doing that project, if RTM approves this allocation, then, as we've said, before the work actually gets completed, there would be public, transparent consideration of, what are we trying to accomplish and how are we going to accomplish it. In the meantime, during the select board's discussion of this particular item, the select board interjected the desire to have there be a real emphasis on improved community engagement as part of this project. And while there was some discussion during that select board consideration of this about potentially even creating a position that would be a staff member devoted to improving community engagement, that for this particular fiscal year, for this particular proposal, the goal of making sure that the thought of how to improve community engagement was made a part of the implementation of the website upgrade. But the discussion of actually adding staff or how to invest more in a more robust manner in community engagement would be something that would flow out of that work and likely be considered in next year's budget process.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And I hear the sentiment that it's, when you hear us talking about more than just the website itself, it was more a fact that we want to just let people know that we're cognizant of these things going forward into the next year. But without the actual budget article, it really didn't feel like we were making a commitment to the site itself, which there was no controversy, unanimous consent that the site needs to be improved, if not burned down to the ground and built up from the bottom. Sorry, I'm editorializing there. Gary Stroud has a hand up. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Gary Stroud, District 2. I guess this is a question I wanted to ask, and that I guess either Peter or Steve on this one's for Article 14 in regards to the funding and the capital projects that are going. Does that also limit the transportation center's elevator? I know we got a new one. Thanks for Peter. Thank you guys for that. But I can see we're going backwards again with that. We're having issues with that and other issues that are going on in the elevator. For revitalization with that, is that part of the project also incorporated? Is that a whole separate thing with the transportation? Okay.
Yeah, it is a whole separate thing that is addressed through the parking fund and the operation of the parking utility. Basically, it's a enterprise fund that is separate from the general fund, and the capital work that's proposed here is for the functions of town government that are operated within the general fund.
Okay, and would that be coming up later on after RTM, something like that in regards?
That's correct. The select board addresses the parking fund and the utilities fund budgets usually in May for final adoption in June.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see. Thank you. I just wanted to get on that. We'll talk about that when we have that discussion more about it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. That was Article 14 and the related Article 15. So I'm going to move on, seeing no other hands at the moment, to Article 16, to see if the town will appropriate the sum of $37,551 for the Community Marketing Initiative promotion of Brattleboro performed jointly by the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. Something kicked around quite a bit and sent forward by your board. And you are welcome to kick it around. Are there any questions concerning Article 16? Great. Article 17. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 through special assessments on properties within the Downtown Improvement District, as approved by town meeting March 19th, 2005, and as delineated in the town ordinance entitled Municipal Act to establish and regulate the Downtown Improvement District, to be used for capital and operating costs of projects of the town's duly designated downtown organization, as reflected in the work plan and budget. I shouldn't have read that whole thing, but I did. So that again is raised through special assessments, and I don't think I need to touch upon that unless people really need more details on that. Any other board members? Oh, Louise has a hand up.
Hi. I would just say, here we go.
Great, thank you.
Taking me a while. I would just make sure that people understand that that's kind of a pass-through item. You said it's raised by assessments, but I think every year somebody says, where is this 80,000 coming from? So I guess I would just say it's important that people know that's not money from the taxpayers. That's the downtown merchants who are assessing themselves, and the town administers the budget. That's all.
Indeed, yeah, and that's much more eloquent than I was, Louise. Thank you. It's because I chose to read that whole clumsy parenthetical portion. But it is indeed money that's collected from the participants of the Downtown Improvement District and passed along and spent. Article 18 is, I think Peter and I are both going to speak to this a little bit. Article 18 is the Human Services budget, so I'm going to hand it over to Peter for a little bit of information.
Thank you. Yeah, so 18 and 19 are a pair this year, and I'm going to speak just to 18, which is the usual annual item. 19 is the one that is unusual, and Tim will speak to that. The usual annual item is bringing forward to the full representative town meeting the recommendation of the Human Services Review Committee. There have been discussions at the select board level pretty much every year about whether or not to have the select board's recommended budget include the full funding recommended by the Human Services Review Committee. That is a committee of this representative town meeting, appointed by representative town meeting. while there have been discussions from year to year about that, the action of the select board each year, at least that I've been working together with you, is has been to indeed pass along the recommendation of the committee for consideration by representative town meeting. And the representative town meeting members will certainly remember that there are, on a number of occasions, have been modifications made on the floor of representative town meeting. But for this moment in time, what's happening this year is the same as what has been normal in recent years, which is that the Human Services Review Committee recommended $276,400 as the funding for the aggregate funding for the variety of different social service agencies that applied for funding this year. And the select board has incorporated into the proposed budget that is going to be considered under Article 20 the full funding of this 276.4, and it does represent an increase over recent years. I'll just mention the trend so that folks can know, put numbers to the description I've just offered about how this has been addressed in RTM over recent years. From $120,000 in FY18 to $146 the next year, $185,595 in FY20, then $210,341 for the current year, and the recommendation of $276,400 for the coming year. And it is in fact that movement and the related discussions that have happened at representative town meeting that has inspired the inclusion this year of Article 19 that Tim will speak to.
Indeed, thank you. It's a strange year in many ways, but especially strange year due to sort of two directions from town meeting within the same meeting last year. So I think Article 19 seeks to basically advise the select board separately from the list of worthy organizations, so that the select board and indeed the Human Services Committee, more importantly in some ways, has some direction and some guideline going forward. How much of next year's budget, fiscal 23 to be specific, should be devoted to human services funding, whether it's a flat dollar amount or a set figure. Set figure is probably a good idea, but also it could be a percentage. It's just a little bit more variable, obviously, when you're basing your expenditure of that year on the previous budget. But to establish a guideline for not only the select board, but for the committee, because there was a fair amount of, confusion going forward. And it also allows RTM, I think, to kick around the general idea, like a 10,000 foot level discussion of what we want the human services budget to be spent on, and what is the purpose of that budget, which I think is a very important conversation going forward, which I think can be muddied by having that conversation within the very real people we all know are connected to all of these organizations, right? So to have that discussion a little bit separate, I think is going to be a healthy exercise for town meeting. And I mentioned this on this article, but I should have mentioned straight up front that everyone should please read the Finance Committee's summary. It's an excellent summary. They give good recommendations. They speak to this subject as well, but it's certainly a lot of work that was done by that committee and should be celebrated and read by all members and just considered, I would say. And I think that's all I'll say. But Article 19 is unusual, but I think it's, in the long run, hopefully it will help us going forward to have that discussion about human service funding. And right on cue, to make sure that I stop talking, George Carville has a hand up. Thank you, George. Welcome.
There, I think I've pushed my buttons correctly.
You have.
And you have not pushed any of mine, so everything's going well. In past years, myself and others have talked about making the human services budget total be a percentage of the previous year's budget. I just am curious if someone could do the math and tell me in your proposal for next year, what percentage is that of this year's budget?
I have a rough
guess,
one in my head, but I'm gonna kick that to Peter because I think he has more of an exact number. It's not quite 2%, and it's
1.4.
1.4%.
Thank you. I was gonna say 1.5. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, that was easy. Daniel, a little color commentary.
Yeah, just a little color commentary on that, because like I think that is the rub. That is sort of why I was at least inspired to, you know, ask for us to have some kind of question like this go to town meeting, because the Human Services Committee felt like they were working with 2% as their target, and they had requests from various organizations which came to in total less than 2% of the budget, and therefore they were placed in a kind of difficult decision. And so I will stop talking there, but that's kind of some of the background on that. And if anyone on the committee wants to set me right where I got it wrong, they should speak now.
Yeah. And I'll just point out that procedurally, the what happened last year was that a warrant article, so the total amount was addressed in the warrant article, and that was a 10% increase. And then it was addressed again in a non-warrant article. So this way, this warrant article is where that discussion can happen. So, an improvement, I think, over the neatness of the whole situation. Okay. Seeing no other hands at the moment. That brings us to Article 20, which is a big one. And because it's a big one and involves lots of numbers, I'm going to lean on Peter Elwell once again.
Thank you.
We all are, I think, at this moment.
And I will try to keep this as reasonably brief as I can, but it is the overall budget article, and in fact, you know, addresses the potential of $19 million worth of town government operations. And so we do in this meeting each year try to provide enough detail about that it's the body can be well informed and able to utilize the materials that are in the town report in a manner that's informed by the presentation and the Q&A tonight. So the budget, because of its significance and in order to be as transparent as possible, actually takes up quite a large amount of the town report. Pages 84 to 115 of the town report are addressing various aspects of the budget. I would point folks to the budget message, which is at the beginning of that, the first 7 pages, 84 through 90. Those are especially important because it provides the summary of what we think are sort of some of the highlights or the most important factors in this year's budget, and in the context of the longer term perspective of town finances. So that's the place where, you know, while many of the other pages in this budget section are the granular line by line details, which also, of course, you know, are important, particularly if there are questions or concerns from our TM members. We'd be happy to call upon the appropriate department head to answer them. But the broader perspective of what is being proposed and why it's being proposed is set forth in that budget message. So I urge people to take a look at that. In addition, that's where we have an opportunity to describe some things that are not strictly the numbers of the budget, but some aspects of sort of how we approach trying to be both you know, effective in our financial management and transparent to the public about the use of tax dollars in the operation of town government. So for instance, this year, the budget message includes a description of why we have created a human resources department within the family of departments throughout the town's budget. Up until now, the human resources, the costs of providing the human resources function of the town is has been included within the town manager's office budget for salary, and in mostly general services and a couple of other locations within the budget as it relates to the related expenses that are not salary expenses. And we felt that that wasn't fully transparent, that it would be better actually to show the HR expenses in a consolidated manner where people can see what we're investing in that very important function, particularly as we continue to make efforts to improve and increase our investment in that area. So there's now a human resources department, and importantly, that particular item doesn't really change the amount of the proposed budget at all, but shows the numbers in a consolidated place, which means that some other places in the budget are going down a little bit in order for there to be this new section of the budget that consolidates those expenses. Distinct from that, but also important to call out, is what's happening with solid waste. So we've had a conversation in this meeting and at the select board level for the last couple of years about the awkwardness of having the solid waste expenses and revenues off the general fund budget dealt with in the spring as part of the consideration of the parking fund and the utility fund, where only the net transfer to cover the subsidy from the general fund to the operation of the solid waste system has been shown in the general fund. That's been not only lacking transparency, but actually, not fully reflecting the costs and revenues that lead to that that transfer. So we thought it was important to incorporate this into the general fund. And indeed, the finance committee a year ago included that also as a recommendation in their report. And so in this proposed FY22 budget, for the first time, we are showing it that way. And the implication of that is not just that we have more line items that provide clearer presentation of the data, but actually an increase of $307,000 in the town's budget, right? So there is, when you're only showing the subsidy, it is the net difference between the revenues and the expenditures, which is also in the 300,000s. I don't have that number right at hand. But when we have over $800,000 worth of expenditures offset by over $500,000 worth of revenue, the net to that $300,000 is, more or less the same as it would have been under the old system, but we've actually added the full amounts of revenue and expenditure into the budget, making it seem as though the town's budget grew when in fact it didn't in this particular area. It did for other reasons that we're going to talk about in a minute. But here, what we've got is actually the continuation of a program for another year in more or less the same manner as it has been before, but showing all of those numbers within the general fund when they previously were not. So it's important to know those things when looking at the numbers in the budget, so as to be able to understand what the actual dollar figures represent. So the detailed line items appear on pages 94 to 112. I won't be speaking to those this evening. I'll be speaking in summary. But if people have questions about those either today or 10 days from now at town meeting, we'll be happy to address this in as much granular detail as the members would like. And the capital request that we've already had a little bit of conversation about, that is shown on one page, both the projects and the equipment replacement for the FY22 capital request are shown on page 113. Overall, the budget is proposed to increase by 6.6%. As I stated a moment ago, it's important to put that in context because over a third of that increase is represented by the increased use of fund balance. We talked about the fact that we had a larger surplus in FY20 than we had in FY19. That means we're able to use more fund balance in FY22 than we have been able to use for FY21. That factor, that increase of over $400,000 is part of the overall increase of the budget, but has zero impact on property taxes. It is a number that goes up when we have enough that we can do more capital work and make a larger transfer. And it goes down in years when we don't have that excess fund balance available for that use. This year is a year when it went up substantially. Another 1/4 of that 6.6% increase is in the solid waste matter that I just described a moment ago, because of the the presentation of all the revenues and all the expenditures without changing the scope of that operation or the cost of that operation to the taxpayers. It causes 1/4 of this 6.6% increase, or almost 2%. There is a general fund transfer of about $45,000 that is proposed this year. That's a very unusual item. We expect it to be 1 year only. We hope it'll be 1 year only. Prior budgets have not had a transfer out to parking. They've only had a transfer in from parking to cover the services that are provided by general fund employees to the parking fund in the operation of the parking system. But because the parking fund is the one area of town finances that has been hard hit by COVID, we anticipate needing to make a transfer from the general fund to the parking fund. And so that's shown on budget here in the FY22 proposed budget, and takes up another piece of that increase that's overall 6.6%, without actually being a change in the operational cost of town government. So the net of that, when you factor out those three pieces that are unusual this year, the increase in the cost of town operations from FY21 to FY22 proposed is about 2.6%, a much more normal figure for an annual increase in the operating budget. Within that, within the 2.6% increase in the cost of operating town government, about half of that operating cost increase is in the cost of town employees. We are a very labor intensive operation. We provide services to the community. And so both between the service delivery aspect and the administrative support aspect, while we operate leanly, we operate mostly with people providing services to the community. And the pay and benefits, as a result of that being labor intensive, the pay and benefits for town employees account for approximately 58% of the overall budget. The increase in this particular proposed budget is a little less than $250,000, $244,000, which is a 2.4% increase in pay and benefits. The two components of that are pay, proposed to increase by 2.9%, in keeping with the collective bargaining agreements with the unions, and the benefits are increasing by less than 1%, thanks mostly to level funding the premiums for the health insurance program for town employees. We have a year where we're not having an increase from Blue Cross, and so that is reflected positively here in the budget for the cost of compensation. The next largest increase for a category of expenditure in the budget is in departmental expenses. That is the non-personnel expenses across all the different departments in town government, both the field departments and the administrative departments. The total increase is that it's proposed at the aggregate total is $87,015, a 4.3% increase. Included within that, there are $41,000 of costs that are showing up in departmental expenses this year because of the creation of the HR department within the budget, that were previously showing up under general services, which shows up under other expenses in the budget. So the department expenses appear to be rising more than the norm for this budget and more than the norm for any given annual year. Departmental expenses actually generally rise less than the rate of inflation. But here's a year where, because of that factor, with $41,000 moving into departmental expenses within the HR budget, and an additional $21,000 worth of stormwater related expenses. So We are just in the beginning of setting out on a process to create a stormwater utility. It will be a better way, as we discussed last year and have discussed in the select board meetings, a better way to fund the stormwater management expenses of the town, which have gone up a lot in order to comply with a new set of state requirements in that area. It'll be a mechanism that fairly distributes the cost of stormwater management to the properties that are contributing to that burden. So it's basically a user fee system. And in that, the state of Vermont, as a major user of our stormwater system, will be contributing to the cost of these particular services, where the state of Vermont, of course, is not a taxpayer and therefore doesn't currently contribute to this or any other aspect of the town's budget. So we're going to be moving in that direction, but for now, we need to stay in compliance with the state's requirement, and it needs to be a general departmental expense within the Public Works Department as a general fund expense. So if you factor out the 21,000 for stormwater and the 41,000 for HR, there's approximately a $25,000 increase, which is 1.2%, which is the cost of the increase for all other aspects of town operations besides the HR transfer and the increased stormwater expense, much more in keeping with what we usually see for this particular part of the budget. The human service funding, we have already had a discussion about under the prior articles. I would just note here that in terms of looking at the overall increase in the cost of operating town government, that this is the third largest component after the personnel costs and the departmental expenses. The human services increase of $86,295 that's proposed for FY22 is the third largest particular category, and all the other categories of expense put together are a variety of small increases, other than the $32,000 increase in the capital equipment. So in implementing the 25-year capital equipment plan, where this year's allocation to capital equipment replacement is $32,000 higher than it was last year. The remaining amount of the overall increase is in very small and spread across all the different aspects of town government, some of which are increasing and some of which are decreasing, and the net of which is negligible increase. On the revenue side, to support those expenses, the local option taxes are particularly important this year because they're both varying from expectations in a significant way. So we've had recently, in the last several years, very good performance in the rooms and meals tax. We've had several years in a row of that revenue source increasing significantly. COVID has hit that area of business hard, and so those receipts have gone down. And the result of that for our budget is a proposed 12.5% decrease in the expected receipts from rooms and meals taxes, going down from 440,000 to 385,000. The counterbalance is much better performance than we originally expected in the local option sales tax. This is probably due mostly to the fact that the state of Vermont has had a program of working with particularly the large online retailers, but as they've gotten past the largest ones, sort of a general program of making sure that online sales are showing up for Vermont sales tax, and for those communities that have the local option sales tax, that people are paying that tax as well for internet sales. So that effort of the state has led to substantially higher collections for this revenue line item for the town than what we anticipated. And we believe, although we can't prove this, we don't get the data in a granular enough fashion from the state to be able to prove this. Anecdotally, there has been so much effort during COVID to reinforce the importance of buying local that we believe there's also some positive impact for this line item by the fact that people who might previously have made purchases outside of town are intentionally trying to make sure that we buy as much as we can, for the things that we need here in town. So we think that the buy local emphasis is helping. We know that the internet sales tax is significantly improving our actual receipts over what we expected. And the net impact of that for the budget is almost $200,000 of additional expected revenue in this item, increasing from $630,000 in the current year's budget to $825,000 in the proposed budget. We've talked previously enough, I think, this evening about the use of fund balance and how that varies from year to year, depending on the performance of the budget in the prior year. This is a year when that increased substantially. And so that's another important part of how we're proposing to fund the expenses side for FY22. And finally, the important bottom line number for individuals and organizations as payers of property taxes. We are proposing a property tax increase approximately proportional to what has been normal for recent years. It's a 2.7% increase, or 3.6 cents on the property tax rate. That would yield $414,000 of additional property tax revenue. The 3.6 cents would equate to a $36 increase per $100,000 of value in property owned over the course of the year, or $9 per quarter per $100,000 of value. With the average Brattleboro home being valued at approximately $190,000, the average Brattleboro homeowner would be looking at a property tax increase of $68 for the year, or $17 per quarterly payment. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That was quite a bit and pretty accurate. I wanted to underline one part of it at least, and I would invite board members to do the same if anything occurred to you along the way as Peter was speaking. I did want to say that, because you mentioned pay in general to Brattleboro employees increasing mainly because of collective bargaining agreement. I just wanted to reassure anybody listening to that at least all the boards that I've served for, have also supported non-union employees getting an increase of at least 2%. I don't know if that might fluctuate for certain employees. Peter, you could correct me on that, but that's, I just wanted to underline that to make sure that people understood that
Yes.
cost of living increases is certainly taken care of year by year so far.
That's a point well taken, that we have budgeted sufficiently to meet the obligations we have under the 4 collective bargaining agreements, and to provide a comparable across the board pay increase that's meant to keep up with inflation and market influences for the non-union employees.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up. Board members have any color commentary? No? Not at all. Okay. So I will not editorialize on my nerdy happiness with South Dakota versus Wayfair and why that's resulted in the state being able to collect those internet taxes, which in a year when everyone stayed at home has been quite important for the town of Brattleboro with our 1% local option tax. Okay, that was a little editorializing, but I'm human. I was actually trying to buy some time for any RTM folks that wanted to raise a hand, and sure enough, Dick DeGray has a hand up, so we'll take his hand. Hi, Dick.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, a little bit more about the solid waste $500,000 shortfall, actually. Was there talk about running? I thought there was talk about this running as an enterprise fund. And the solid waste program was supposed to be revenue neutral. And so are we running this program as a loss leader? Because it looks like...
I can explain that in a couple of different locations. So first, let me say that it's not a $500,000 deficit that it runs. It's about $500,000, a little over that, of revenue. Let me find it, the real number. Actually, no, you're correct. I'm sorry. The transfer was $555,000, and the it's going to be slightly higher. The net difference between the revenues and expenditures is going to be slightly higher this year, at about 590. So you're correct about the magnitude of the degree to which the general fund has been subsidizing the waste operations. But here's why, and I think it hasn't operated as an enterprise fund, and it couldn't operate as an enterprise fund without dramatically restructuring what's expected for the operations of the program. If the fees collected were to cover all of the costs in the solid waste program, then that $500,000 would fall to, you know, all the users, all the folks. Basically, the way we collect most of the revenue in this operation is through the sale of bags. So the sale of bags would have to be like triple the cost, which is not really a practical alternative. What we cover in this area is not the full cost of operation, which is what a utility fund or a parking fund or another enterprise fund of a government operation has to do, is to cover fully without a tax subsidy the cost of operations. Instead, what we do here, in compliance with the state's mandate about 7 or 8 years ago, for what they called variable rate pricing in solid waste, is we have to cover the cost of collecting and disposing of garbage. And the reason why it's that focused is to make sure that there is an incentive for people to reduce the amount of garbage that's being thrown away and move more of the waste stream into compost and recycling. So what the state wanted was not to have people put the total cost of solid waste as a user fee, where there would not be that differential, but rather to create a differential where if you throw more away, you pay more. And if you recycle and compost more, you pay less. And so that's how we're structured. And the amount of the revenue collected through the sale of bags, and the very much smaller amount of revenue for the sale of containers for compost and recycling, that does offset the cost of the garbage collection and disposal, but does not begin to address the rest of the costs related to compost and recycling and the other related. We pay $80,000 to the operation of the solid waste district and the other related expenses.
Well, it is being subsidized by the commercial property taxpayers who don't benefit from the recycling program, yet their taxes go towards this subsidy, and they have to provide trash removal and or whatever for their commercial building. So it is getting subsidized by commercial landowners. And I don't disagree with if this was strictly on the users, it would be a significant financial impact on the people that have trash collection. So it is a concern of mine, though, for the $500,000 imbalance, and trying to get that more in line with the revenue stream coming in. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Dick makes a fair point that there is, and just to be clear, I think is it 4 units and above or 5 units and above?
Yeah, up to 4 is included within the residential program.
those landlords are responsible for their own trash and recycling services, I believe, everything. I'm not commenting on that, but that is a fact. And I just wanted to say that also contributing to the problems of late is, of course, the worldwide sort of collapse of the recycling market. If you mentioned that, I just missed it. So
No, I didn't, and I'm glad you did. That's actually at a time when other changes in this program have been really positive, especially the reduced cost of operations at the solid waste district. So our share of that has gone down by $100,000 over the last several years as an annual payment into the operation of the solid waste district. But that has been more than offset by increased cost of disposal of the recyclables.
absolutely. In theory, if that market ever comes back, we'll be sitting pretty, but we'll see if that happens. Okay. I don't see any further hands up. Board members, any other commentary? Which brings us to Article 21, to see if the town will authorize the expenditures of $36,147 from program income. And this is for CEBEDS. This comes up every year. This always has a fair amount of discussion, both at town meeting and in the select board. This year, if I recall correctly, we did unanimously send this number forward. It's not always the case in previous years. But I think it, the attitude of the board was that we need all the help we can get in what's going to be a sort of a long-term recovery, I think, in a lot of ways for the region. And that's what this money is intended to go towards. And as a reminder, it is not it's not taxpayer money per se. It is federal funds that moves through the state of Vermont and comes to Brattleboro. It has restrictions. It can only be spent on economic development or for specific housing needs. And that's the pot of money where that $36,147 comes from. Any questions on that before I move on? I'm seeing none. Article 22, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $223,276.47. Special assessments on Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Tax Assessment District. I promised myself I wouldn't start to go into this without relying once again on Peter, but it's an article that we address every year, right, Peter?
It is. Yes, there's a long-term debt that's being repaid by the town, but where the town receives the full amount of each annual payment from Tri-Park. It resulted from some major capital improvements to the utilities system within Tri-Park that in order to obtain more favorable terms of borrowing, the town took out borrowed the funds on behalf of Tri-Park, and through an agreement with Tri-Park, as the town repays that debt, Tri-Park is repaying, is paying the town. It's a pass through from the town to the creditor. It'll continue for many more years while the debt for this capital improvement is retired, and it exists as an item for representative town meeting only because of the particular way in which the debt documents were structured. So there's an annual action that's required by town meeting to impose, if you will, upon Tri-Park this assessment in order to collect the money that Tri-Park agreed to pay to the town so that the town could pay it to the creditor. The overall impact of it, what goes on here is an administrative function. The overall impact of the town's involvement was to make the borrowing of the money less expensive in order to accomplish the needed improvement.
Thank you. When was that done? Do you recall?
It was, I believe, in the 2011, 2012 timeframe, but I'm not certain. I'd have to look that
Okay.
up to tell you for sure.
Well, by my memory, it's even earlier than that, but I'm sure you're closer to that than I am.
I'm not so sure.
Thanks for that explanation. We are in Article 22, and I have a hand from Michael Bosworth.
Sure. One of the things about this, of course, in voting on this, we won't have any impact, but it does impact the residents of Mountain Home quite a bit. And, there was a recent planning work done. And so I just didn't know whether there's any quick update on progress. I mean, the more mobile homes there are in Mountain Home, then the easier it is for each individual home to afford their portion of this. Is there any quick update on progress or not?
The quick update is that there was indeed a plan prepared. There was involvement of the state and the residents in Tri-Park and the town and other entities, public and private. It was quite a collaborative effort. So there's some longer term approaches to making sure that the park remains financially viable and also safe. There are still some home sites that are in the floodway there. And so that the longer term perspective is more complicated than what I'm about to say. In the shorter term, there has been also some, because of COVID primarily, there's been some examination of this particular debt and other debt like it related to the infrastructure in facilities like this that may have a positive impact on the repayment of this particular debt. And I don't have the details of that yet, but we hope to be addressing that sometime in the months ahead with the select board. I don't believe there'll be a town meeting item that would be required in order to address that, but it could affect the amount that's in this article when we get to it next year. Could reduce it.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. Great. That brings us to the end of Article 22. Articles 23 through 27 all have to do with exemptions, town exemptions that were established some years ago, and it was agreed that these particular tax sites or organizations with taxed land are given exemptions. And so it's come back around. This is the 5-year period on 5 properties. And I'll just go down the list and sort of, if people want to ask a question about it, we can take it as a block or separately. But so Article 23 concerns Brattleboro Post 5, American Legion's Little League Field. Article 24 is Camp Wabanong. Article 25 is Garden Path Elder Living's Holton Home. And then Article 26 is Bradley House. So those two are the same organizations, 2 different locations. Article 27 is the Family Garden, Inc. These are concerning, again, the real estate, the municipal portion of real estate taxes on these 5 organizations and spots in town that have been previously thought to be quite valuable to us as a town, and exemptions have been granted. That doesn't mean that RTM can't kick this around and change their mind or go for a shorter term to reassess this. I think the 5-year could always be changed to a different time period to reassess the property's exemptions. But that's the only, they're all related. And I'll take a hand. I think it went up as I was talking about it, so I'm not sure which article Ricky might want to speak to, but you're welcome to take the microphone.
Hello. So I appreciate the named locations in these articles compared going back to Article 17, from my understanding, although they show a map of the downtown, I think that they're asking for this money of $80,000 to assess specific properties and what their value is. And so I would appreciate them listing which specific properties that they're investigating.
Thank you. Is there a map? Do we have a map in here? I think.
On page 17 for Article 17.
Oh, page 17 for Article 17. Yes, indeed. So that's the special assessment district. And you're looking for even more detail than that?
Yeah, well, they say that they are looking at several sites, but they don't list what the sites are.
Okay.
May I try to?
Sure, jump in.
So I'm not sure what the looking at several sites, what you're referring to there, Ricky. So you could maybe point that out to me in a moment. What I can say definitively is if you look at the area that is within the dashed line on that map, all the properties that are within that dashed area pay the assessment towards the total of $80,000 that's collected for the operation of the DBA. And any property that is outside that dashed line does not pay that assessment.
So it's not just, it's because like at the bottom of it, it says, it seems like that they vote on which sites that they are specifically going to be working on, not just the entire zone within that dotted line of the map.
So the work plan that is brought forward is a programmatic work plan. It's for different activities that the DBA undertakes that are either to draw business to downtown or to support the local businesses in some manner. They do not from year to year make choices about which properties to collect funding from and which properties not to collect funding from. That is fixed by the ordinance that created the downtown district. That ordinance established these boundaries, and every property owner knows whether they are in or out. It doesn't change from year to year.
I think I'm just looking for more of a breakdown of how they're going to be spending that $80,000. They say what their goals are, but if maybe they could have it more categorized, like this much money is going to this project specifically, that would be appreciated.
That does exist within the DBA's budget and the work plan they have for each fiscal year. So if you contacted the DBA about that, you could obtain that information, and the DBA representatives will be in the actual representative town meeting to answer those kinds of questions.
Are they planning on having a PowerPoint to supplement what's missing from page 17 for Article 17?
I don't know that. I do know that they do present every year to the select board, and PowerPoints are presented there. Daniel had a hand up.
Yeah, in the town report on page 75, you'll see a report from the DBA on the work that they've done this year. That I think would be a good substitute for any kind of PowerPoint. It's like 7 pages long. That sounds like it's probably about as close as to what you're asking for there, Ricky.
Thank you.
And there are other reports towards that part of the book as well on various projects and whatnot.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Daniel. It's actually more complete than I've seen in previous years, so I should have mentioned that. Dick DeGray has a hand up as well.
Yeah, I believe that there are 83 or 86 properties in the DID boundary at this point. I think it's one of those two numbers. And someone commented earlier in the meeting about they assess themselves. Actually, since I own a building in the district, I can't get out of paying that assessment. So for me, it's a tax. You can call it an assessment. But your assessment is based on the value of your property. And so whatever the town values your property at, that $80,000 is divvied up between all the property owners. And the more value, obviously, to your building, the more of that assessment you pay. So that's how that is configured, and that's how it's done. Certainly, being a part of that group, I'm actually responsible for, I believe, 32,000 of that, and a considerable sum of that money goes towards that flower program that people get to enjoy every year. But I didn't see their detailed budget in there, and maybe they can have, well, you can't do a handout, excuse me, going down memory lane there for a second. Yeah, there is a budget for next year that gets passed by the members of the DID, and then it gets passed on to the select board, which moves it along for town meeting. So pretty self-explanatory. So I wasn't quite sure what else you were looking for, Ricky, other than getting a look at their budget, which I'm actually surprised if it's not in the town report. I guess I would ask that it be placed in there in the ensuing years. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. And we have Sue Fillion's hand up. Hi, Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Fillion. I'm the planning director. I'm also the town's ex officio member of the DBA. And I just wanted to let you know that you can find the budget on their webpage, which is brattleboro.com. They have their current budget and the proposed budget that will that's part of the town's budget here. So if you want to take a look at that, you can find it on their webpage. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, brattleboro.com, not to be confused with brattleboro.org, of course. I'll leave it there. So let's see, where are we? We are almost at our end here. No other hands up. Article 28 is the catch-all to transact any other business that may lawfully come before the meeting. And certainly we can't really talk about that because you never know what that's going to be. So I feel like I should have prepared some sort of closing inspirational statement for this moment.
Silence is golden, Tim.
I know, well, but it is, you know, it's a lot of silence when you're trying to do this Zoom thing, and you know, it's just one of these things to mourn the loss of. We can't really interact with our RTM with each other right now, but boy, are we all going to get our jabs out there, as the people across the pond say? Your people, Daniel? Do you say
They're
jab?
not my people anymore.
Oh, good. It's very nice to hear. But we do have a hand up, so perhaps Chris would like to make some comments and have a wonderful closing statement for us.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I was a member of the select board 10 years ago. It's a difficult job. And you've really made it clear. You know, I think you've been as concise as you possibly can with the documents that you're working with and all the detail. I just want to tell you that I am grateful as a resident of Brattleboro for all the work that the board and its and that the town staff has done to put this report and this informational meeting together. Just thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That's very much appreciated. And I have to echo your remarks about our fantastic town staff. Just so many people working together so well to bring this together. And let's have Gary wants to make a comment.
Yeah, hi, Gary Stroud, District 2. I just want to concur with Mr. Chapman. I was just reminiscing about the old representative town meeting being held. I found one of the books to see how thin it was way back. So that must have been a very short RTM meetings back then. Probably what is about 45 minutes, maybe at least. But looking forward to this one, and I'm sure it's going to go off with a hitch. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. And one important thing, everybody, please get your shots so we can all start meeting each other again. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Well said. And all right, the date is March 20th, 8:30 a.m. If no one has any other comments, I will. Oh, Peter is gonna. Liz is pointing that way, but on my screen you're that way. So.
Sorry to prolong by 30 seconds, but I just want to remind everybody there's a this coming Saturday morning at 8:30. We're going to do a test run like we did last year. So for people who just want to have a little more practice using the Zoom methods of holding a representative town meeting, we'll start at 8:30. We'll be done by mid-morning, but it'll be an opportunity to have a little bit of, discussion that's not of these particular topics, but just where people are taking turns of asking for the floor and being granted the floor. And we'll have a couple of practice votes and just work with the technology a little bit. So hopefully everybody will be a little more comfortable with it, and we'll have smoother sailing on the 20th. And then very importantly, 1 week from tonight at 7:30, we will be presenting the details of the water treatment facility replacement project and the proposed funding for that. That is the subject of the Australian ballot that Hillary spoke to earlier. That's going to be mailed to every representative town meeting member. And we'd ask that as many representative town meeting members as possible, please attend next Wednesday night, because it's an important project. It's a $12 million project and essential to maintaining safe water for our community. So we want to be able to present those details and answer your questions about the project.
Thank you, Peter. Not only is it an important $12 million project, but it's on a day where Steve Barrett does not want to be working. So out of respect for that Irishman, we all need to try to make that meeting, I think. So, Mary Casey has a hand up. District 1. Mary, welcome. Never know what to do while I'm waiting for people to join us. Although maybe it's a hand that's not attended.
Maybe she's waving goodbye. And she wants us to
celebratory
adjourn.
hand.
Nope.
Unattended hand. It's like a mystery story.
Oh, it looks like that was the case. Ricky, did you want to have a last word?
Yeah, could you explain more about the process of for Article 28, how we transact business that is lawfully brought to the meeting?
Oh, is that the last article? I'm sorry, I closed my book.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Bob hasn't said anything all
Sure. Ricky, the other business part of town meeting is to transact other business. It is, all of it is non-binding. So after the last formal article, the moderator will recognize anybody who wishes to speak to bring up other business. There are discussions and then many times non-binding votes. So it's the time to bring up things that are not on the warning that have an effect on the town or that you wish to bring up. But just remember that it's a non-binding part of the meeting. Thank you.
How do you define what is lawfully brought to the meeting versus not lawfully brought to the meeting?
I think it's just language, traditional language. But
yes, well, if you're asking what can be brought up under other business, obviously it has to be relevant, and the moderator has great discretion as far as what gets talked about and what doesn't. But as far as what's legally in the meeting of the 27 articles, that is legally before the representative town meeting by virtue of the warning that the select board has made. So those articles are the legal, formal, binding articles for this year's representative town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, do you want to throw in a little commentary?
Yeah,
there?
I just want to kind of ask Bob to say more about what non-binding means. I feel like we had this come up in a select board meeting the other day. So if something happens in any other business and it is non-binding, what does that mean in layperson's terms, or in legal terms, both? You know. Uh-oh.
Or let me make
Bob's
sure.
gone silent.
How's that?
There we go. Sorry. As far as the non-binding, it can be a directive. So let's say there's a vote advising or directing the town or the select board to take certain action. It's non-binding in terms of, yes, it's advisory to the select board, but the select board would not need to take that action further on down the year. Now, many times the board listens to the representatives at town meeting and follows their advice, but the non-binding part means that it's not legally effective if there is such a vote under other business. Does that help?
Yep.
Indeed. Thank you, Bob. FAR has a hand up. W2-3. I guess that's the proper designation. Hi, FAR.
Hi. Yeah, I just had a question about in previous years when we had in-person RTM, there was a sort of side thing going on where there was a primer kind of on parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, and I'm wondering if there will be a venue for that at all this year.
I don't know. Do you, Peter?
No, I'd ask Patrick to come into the meeting and let us know if that's been planned. I think to some degree, for the some of that will be covered during this coming Saturday's technical practice. You know, we're calling it a technical and logistical informational meeting. So certainly Lauren can speak to parliamentary procedure during that, but it's not, strictly speaking, what you're talking about where there's actually been sort of a more like a training type approach to it for the half hour prior to the meeting when we've been in person. And I don't know whether that is contemplated this time or not. I don't think so. Patrick, can you shed some light on that?
Oh, I was.
Hi, Peter.
Patrick.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My understanding is, from my recollection of most past representative town meetings, that was something Marshall Wheelock undertook.
Yes.
I don't know if he has any plans to do so tonight. I am unaware of any, but I'd be happy to reach out to him and see if he's available and interested. And if so, we can take a look at that.
Yeah, and thank you for raising the question. For when we know the answer, we can announce it at the additional informational meetings, and we can also send an email out to all the members of RTM about, you know, if there is going to be a session like that available.
That's great. Yeah, even if it was just something that was written, there was just like a one-pager previous years that might still be helpful. I don't know how this year compares to previous years, but just my impression is there's a lot more new people this year than perhaps other times.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say I would recommend also looking back at some BCTV archives of past meetings. Maybe look at one. You wouldn't want to watch a whole meeting probably, but look at one that's an in-person meeting and then look at last year's Zoom RTM. it was last year, but it was pretty recently, just to get a flavor of how Robert's Rules works in a large body like that. A little different than how Robert's Rules for small boards that we operate under at the select board. So thanks for that follow-up. And Tony Duncan has a hand up.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, there are detailed descriptions of all the articles up to 21. Is it just not necessary for the other ones? Because it just kind of cuts off, and then there's all the town information after Article 21, where they're the, all the first ones have detailed descriptions, and the rest of them are kind of self-explanatory, but I'm just wondering if they're supposed to be more detailed on the information package.
Oh, I see. Well, without commenting on 22, 23 through 27, I know that there will be representatives for those organizations present on the 20th. I just get a nod from Peter.
Yeah, they're also in that section, Tony, that you referred to. If you look sort of between pages 15 and 21 is where there are some article summaries. It's only some of the articles that get a more detailed summary. Those are ones that we thought required that additional explanation. And then of course there's a lot of material throughout the book that speaks to different articles, but these ones that are labeled with an article number, there's 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's several of them, but not all of them. And,
okay.
And you're right.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an oversight of some sort.
No.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony. And Ruth. Welcome. Hi. Just hang on. Let's see. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. I was just wondering if the town website is going to have updated information for the now current RTM members.
Yes.
Oh, a list?
Yeah, just like an email list or whatever. Just wondering how we can be in touch with each other if we want to be.
Hillary?
Hillary, are you still with us? Is there let me see if Hillary, I don't see her in the meeting actually.
She's here. She's actually trying to come in.
Sorry. Oh, there we go.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the confusion. I was raising my hand and I think Patrick was looking for me. So yes, we were just waiting until after tonight's caucuses when we had all of the new appointed members, and it's on our list of things to do first thing tomorrow morning to update the website with the current RTM members.
Awesome. And one more really small thing, Tony, who just asked a question before me, go to page 14 in the town thing, because I was also confused about the same thing.
Okay. Thanks, Ruth. All right. Board members, come on, save me here. Inspiring statement to everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
Be a great RTM.
Spring is coming, kind of.
I didn't hear that, Daniel. Sorry.
I said spring is coming, kind of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all right, we will see you next, everyone. Hopefully this coming Wednesday, if you don't need the Saturday, this Saturday's sort of practice run and familiarization day. We hope to see you on St. Patrick's Day on the 17th at 7:30. Gary, you already said something. Do you want an inspiring last statement real quick?
Yeah, I just want to say thank God for that COVID relief. We got the money. Spend it wisely, people. time to make the chimichangas, and let's have a good evening and stay safe, people. It's good seeing you.
All right, Gary.
Great, nice work.
Well said. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.